Let me just make sure we are, in fact, live, sir.
Live. Like the old 90s band. Remember them?
Oh, live, yes. Dude, I loved some of their songs.
Lightning crashes.
Yeah, I loved
Yep.
some of their songs. I really, really did.
hmm Yeah, they were one of the first alternative rock bands. Think of their early 90s.
I'm just waiting for this to actually show up live. I wonder if it reverted back to the main channel.
Ooh. Swahili.
It shouldn't have.
Oh my god, dude.
Why can't I see it? Why can't I see? My name is Trav and I really want to see. So content, let's go to live. Oh yeah, it says we're live right now. Give me this link.
What if it just
Why
said
can't
dead?
I see it?
What would you do?
Why can't I see? My name is Trav and I really want to see. Okay, that seems to be working. But the question is Tommy T. Neutron Thomas coming through?
I don't know.
Oh, oh yeah, you're
Am I,
coming through.
am I coming through? Yay.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Try it again.
Boobily bop up.
Ski ba
Speak
ba da da
it
da dee da 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 dee ba 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 da ba.
God.
Yeah, yeah, you're coming through.
Yes. Okay, cool.
Let's go over here and share it with peeps. Share it with peeps. Oh yes, share it. L-A-E, uli-u, luli-pampi.
That does not feel good.
What's been on your mind lately, Thomas T. Tomlinson?
The things I could talk about forever. Well, recently, you know what's been on my mind, but before that, what was I looking into? Hang on. Well, I did that full breakdown on Jordan Peterson. But a lot. Big one.
Yeah. And what were your conclusions?
Oh, lots. In general, let me, because I have it all written down. Give me a second and I'll go to it. A second. Okay.
So Tommy, what do you think about Jordan Peterson?
What do you think about Jordan Peterson? Well, let me tell you.
Hey, the chance.
If I'm going to steel man him, he does have his, load-bearing credentials. He's got University of Toronto Professor Emeritus of Psychology. We cover all of his credentials, right? We steel man the holy shit out of him. And then we get to, no, that's still the steel man, hang on. Right, there we go. So we made a fault line map too, because I had to go and search all that stuff and recheck it and go check sources and blah, blah, blah.
Yep.
But in general, compression errors is what it seems to be. And we've talked about compression before. It's the old saying of Einstein, or whoever the hell said it, if you don't understand something, if you can't explain something simply, you don't understand it complexly, basically.
Right.
And in general, that just means if you have a full understanding of the top meta level of some category, then if you can compress the information without losing it completely in the most efficient way, that is what he was talking about. And so Jordan does compression a lot. Jordan Peterson is most vulnerable where a valid insight gets overcompressed until it starts doing jobs it was never licensed to do. So this is the pattern I saw. A psychological insight becomes a metaphysics. A mythic pattern becomes a truth claim. A biological description becomes a social norm. A critique of identity politics becomes a counter-identity. A free speech concern becomes a total civilizational panic. A self-help frame becomes a capacity blind moral pressure, and a symbolic reading becomes a fog machine for ontology. So Jordan's systems works because it compresses real human needs into emotionally powerful symbols. It breaks when those symbols stop being marked by level, scope, context, and ethical effect. Sorry.
Yeah. I mean, I think
So that's his big thing. Yeah.
I think that's pretty clear.
Yeah. And I mean, just in general, like, if you really, this part, sorry, it takes that overcompressed world, right? And it's just, so what I came to is that Jordan Peterson's strongest gift is symbolic compression. He turns chaos, suffering, responsibility, religion, hierarchy, identity, and meaning into emotionally graspable maps for people, maps of meaning. His deepest philosophical vulnerability is the exact same thing. He often lets those compressed symbolic maps do too much work across too many different levels without enough aspectual discipline, which means being able to understand that they are all connected but interdependent in such ways ontologically. And we have to understand that they are their own systems, as in what we were talking about earlier, the myth making and as metaphysics kind of stuff, right? I mean, it's about the frame. So I don't reject Peterson because he uses myth. I don't reject him because he takes religion seriously, and I don't reject him because he emphasizes responsibility. I kind of attack him because a symbolic frame becomes dangerous when it forgets that it is a frame. That is the thing.
Yeah.
If we really want to help society.
Sometimes lensing can lead you to engage in overgeneralization.
Yep.
So if you
Bet your ass it does.
Yeah, if you move away from specificity, and I understand in some cases moving away from specificity can help give someone a general understanding of a topic, but
Yes.
you want to make sure that the general understanding or the general view you are abstracting from the specificity actually is clearly logically coherent to the evidence, to the
Yes.
actual let's say we could say ontological reality of the category.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the arena here is that Peterson is a symbolic weather system. He really is. He has become such, in certain areas of society. And his public identity is not just academic or clinical, anymore. His own site frames him as a psychologist, author, online educator. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
you talked about the university the other night.
Yeah.
But
The
that doesn't
yeah.
mean that he's just, a psychologist giving advice at all. He's a
From a Pangburn
world.
virtue scorecard perspective, like he's sitting around a 7.5 overall, a B
Yeah.
score. This is actually a pretty good overall score. To be 8 out of 10, between 8 and 8.5 out of 10 would be considered, fully Pangburnian. So he's like on the cusp there, within a few points.
He's a brilliant man, and I think he's a good man. So
Yeah, the
in a
certaintist
lot of ways.
posturing, and the epistemic issues, lack of fallibilistic constraint, made explicit, is an issue. This has got him scoring around a 6.8, getting a B minus for fallibilism.
Yeah.
He's well-being, maximizing well-being for himself and those around him. Obviously, he has his own health struggles, but he's working to rectify that. He has done well by many millions of people at this point. Their
He has.
self-reported increase to their physical, mental, and social health.
What he is doing, really quickly, what he is doing is he is giving people a quick and well compressed format of different types of psychology that they would not get other places. You know what I
Yep.
mean? So they may learn cognitive behavioral therapy from him, cognitive distortions.
Yep.
They may accidentally learn some of the Jungian things that are useful about archetypes and things like that. They may learn those things. You know what I mean? But and that's extremely helpful. That's why he's helped so many people, is because he's not a coward. You know what I mean? In terms of that, in terms
Right.
of being able to just push psychology out into the world. That's the good part, I believe. So.
Yes.
But what
That
he's
is
trying to
good.
do, as you know, he is a symbolic civilization interpreter. And he is obsessed with that, right? I've got to make sure
Yep.
that these archetypes and this civilization interpretation does not get into chaos, you know?
Right.
and he's creating the chaos. So
Yeah.
in those spheres, right? Not across the world, obviously, but in the intellectual spheres, in the manospheres, in the political spheres, all that kind of stuff. So.
Continuing on with the virtue scorecard, we get to communication, which is his highest virtue score when it comes to good faith and helpfulness, being the minimum requirements for a fruitful dialectic. My system scores him at a 9 out of 10, which is very high communication score. So is there ever a question whether Jordan Peterson is being good faith or not? That means to be honest and sincere with your intentions. I don't think so. There's people that like to create conspiracy theories about him, like he's just some money grubbing grifter. But then when I ask for evidence of that, they just paint a conspiracy theory about him. But so I think he's highly good faith. And the question is, how helpful is he? Well, I think even though he brings the hard-edged, heavy-hearted passion sometimes to conversations, he still maintains an air of helpfulness. Like he's curious, maintains a level of curiosity. Yes. Where he's asking questions still and giving, wearing his heart on his sleeve in the dialectic. This is very helpful for someone sitting across from him because they know where he's at, what he's thinking, how he's feeling. So that's why my system gives him a 9 out of 10, and I agree with that score.
I agree with that, yeah. I deeply agree with that as well. He's a great communicator in a lot of ways.
Yeah. Patience, he dwindles a little bit, but still for an intellectual, a 7.2 out of 10, a B- score for patience is quite good. And the question is, the corresponding maxim is ultimate patience, even in the face of detestable ideas. So does Jordan Peterson put himself up to the challenge to sit down with people who hold ideas that he detests? Well, on the Pangburn stage, he did it multiple times. On his podcast, he does it frequently. He had Destiny on, of all people, who he knew it was going to be a hard-hitting bout between those two. So, yeah, I think he does practice this ideal of trying to maintain an ultimate patience. The Daryl Davisonian level of trying to maintain patience, in front of the KKK Grand Wizards. Now, his lowest score, and I think this is correct, lightheartedness, refine and express your sense of humor. I think Jordan Peterson carries a very heavy heart into discussions, into the public sphere that he doesn't need to. It would be much better for his well-being, for his physical, mental, and social health, if he learned to make lightheartedness primary. Allow that to help regulate stress, anxiety, disorder as a virtue, and remind yourself to maintain lightheartedness. Often when he does laugh, when he's in a contentious debate or something like that, it does seem very forced. Like it's kind of, humor's just getting in the way of the information. Well, humor and refining and expressing your sense of humor is an important way to engage in cognitive repair on the fly. So, it's important for him to, I would say, when looking at the 6 Pangburn virtues and maxims, honing in on that and watching that new adoption of making lightheartedness primary, see how it affects all the other virtues and his own virtues, and allowing them to shine through more. But he kind of leans into negative utilitarianism, suffering avoidance calculus, which tends to come with it the dark cloud of heavy-heartedness. And I'm simply asking him to let the sun shine through, let your bare feet, walk through the sand, touch grass, yeah, exactly, climb trees. Let that lightheartedness, the playfulness and optimism of lightheartedness, let that shine through. Also the positivity. In Pangburn philosophy, positivity, optimism, and playfulness are the 3 subcategories
Here's
of
the big
lightheartedness.
thing, though. We can still be suffering in pain and still play our way out of it.
Yep.
Play and lighthearted. I can be as serious as I want to be and still be like, you know what? Let's try. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's the whole point. Is like just play.
Yeah.
Even if you're burning to death, play will help.
A big mistake
I'm telling
people,
you.
yeah, and that's good for you to bring up, because a big mistake people will make when interpreting lightheartedness, they'll think, well, that you're just trying to bring death to seriousness. No,
Yeah.
no. Look at someone like Neil deGrasse.
Both things.
Yeah, look at someone like Neil deGrasse Tyson, who scores like a 9 to a 9.5 out of 10 by my standards of lightheartedness. Neil deGrasse Tyson is a master of maintaining seriousness in a dialectic that's accompanied by a lighthearted posture. And
That's how people learn the best, by the way.
Yeah.
Humor helps us learn with each other, because when our nervous systems are safe with each other, we may not be thinking, it's unconsciously happening, right? We
Right.
regulate, especially when we're that close. And so humor allows us to mold the clay easier between us in that intersubjective dialectical conversational space.
yes, exactly. We got T with us, and we got Scott with us. Welcome, my dudes, dudettes, whichever you prefer.
Yes.
We're just talking through things.
Does my name not light up if you hover over my camera view?
No, it doesn't. It just says for me T dot dot dot. Thomas, what does it say for you?
I can look. Hang on, I'm just actually reading.
That's wild.
I see the fusician.
Yeah, why is that for me?
Well, because you're a loser.
Maybe I need to try to open my browser wider. I tried.
Screen.
No, it's still doing that. That is, as
Well,
we
it's
would
just-
say in high school, back when I was in high school, that is bunk. Do you guys remember bunk?
Oh yeah,
I do.
bunk and dank. Things that were good were dank.
Oh yeah. Oh dude, that's so dank. So
I said "dang" a million times in my life.
and then to cap off Jordan Peterson's excellent balance between art and science from an inspirational perspective. Of course, in Pangburn philosophy, the reason why I say let art and science inspire, because art and science are highly reliable sources of inspiration that have almost certain chances of seeking to maximize your well-being by way of inspiration. So Ben Jordan Peterson, he's around a 7.8 or an 8 out of 10. That's very good. This means making your artistic and scientific inspirations, not only having them in your mind, but making them explicit in the way you explain things, in the way you think about the world. And of course, Jordan has a deep connection to what I would call the art of religion, and a lot of things by way of the literary arts. He shows deep appreciation for music and the visual arts in the way he talks about the things that mean most to him, and and he is of course a psychologist, a previously practicing clinical practitioner, and there is no end to the amount of neuroscience and different things that come up in Jordan Peterson lectures, discussions, podcasts that would have him score high. So for all of those 6 scores, we come to an overall score of a 7.5 out of 10 for Jordan Peterson, and which is fantastic. Now, a lot of people, when we're generally scoring someone, they will quickly run to their negativity bias. They will say, but what about all the things Jordan Peterson has said about trans people? Yeah, a lot of those things should be condemned and are just completely incorrect. But remember, we are looking at the general picture of the totality of the man. Yes, he has sent out probably between 10 and 20 transphobic tweets throughout his life, and but you also have to talk about how he makes it explicit that he is supportive of trans people's rights to identify the way they want and to have access to the freedoms they deserve and all that. So what I find typically when people are trying to make a general assessment of a human being by way of their own ethical standards, they really heavily lean into negativity or positivity bias when they do this. And this is why a system like I have is really good for learning. I learn something new every single time I run a new scorecard. Every single time. It all comes down to why I think it's important to be able to articulate and play the scoring game in this way. The better you can articulate your ethical standards, the better you can put them into practice. We get into the category of praxis in philosophy, where we remove ourselves from the theoretical or the propositional within our own mind, and then we see how we actually act in the world and see if it is coherent to our professed moral standards. Sorry that my voice is so nasally, but I am still suffering from a cold. Well, you should be.
Right. Well, you should be.
Yeah, well, negativity and positivity bias are some of the most common failures in thinking. Would you agree, Thomas? Like, just generally across the board?
Yeah, that's going to be one of... I mean, just in terms if you want to be as analytical as you can possibly be, I mean, yeah, you want to not use negativity bias or positivity bias. If you just want to analyze the information, that's one layer of understanding something. You can do that. So...
Yeah. I'm going to read this into the record.
Read it.
Because I like to do this first so that we're all on the same page. Negativity bias and positivity bias. Of course, I took a bite of watermelon exactly the moment when I was about to start reading. I shall... what is it called? ASRM or whatever into the microphone.
ASMR. Yeah, we just
ASMR.
whisper the whole time, drive people insane.
Yeah. So, negativity bias and positivity bias are two broad tendencies in cognition, attention, memory, emotional processing, and social behavior. They describe asymmetries in how humans process unpleasant versus pleasant information. The modern scientific consensus is not that humans are, quote, only negative or only positive, but that the brain contains multiple interacting systems shaped by evolution, development, culture, incentives, and context. At a high level, negativity bias refers to the tendency for negative events, emotions, threats, criticisms, losses, and dangers to exert greater psychological impact than equally intense positive experiences. So positivity bias refers to several related phenomena where positive interpretations, optimistic expectations, rewarding experiences, or favorable self-assessments become amplified relative to negative information. Both are real. The important question is not which one exists, but because they both obviously exist, but under what conditions each dominates. So this has to do with, like, when we talk about negative utilitarianism versus positive utilitarianism, what kind of interpretations are emerging as stronger in the negative bias direction or the positive bias direction, and why is that happening?
In general,
yeah. Go ahead, Thomas. Yeah.
No, you're good. I want to hear all this, but just in general, if you want to talk meta level and human health, learning is what we want because that allows us to adapt more quickly and survive. So learning is what we want the system to do, right? The human system, as efficiently as possible with as little wasted energy as possible, right? When you use bias in any sense to reason too far, right? Bias is, you can't escape that, but bias overcorrecting to a certain point, you are getting further away from learning in your system. You are not actually learning the actual data. Your brain is being programmed with the data that your bias is leading towards, right? So you don't want to overclock those biases. That's why you really have to check. You know what I mean? Be very
Right.
careful and fallible.
Exactly.
Yep.
And so let's go into deeply defining negativity bias. So negativity bias is one of the most replicated findings in psychology and cognitive science. The core claim is negative stimuli are generally processed more deeply, remembered more vividly, prioritized more rapidly, and weighted more heavily than positive stimuli of comparable magnitude. So, I talk a lot about this in my first book, where negativity bias and positivity bias are not equal in this sense with regards to your well-being. Negativity bias causes much stronger detriment to your physical, mental, and social health. So there's a reason why that your doctor, your therapist, other people who care about your well-being are going to encourage you to start adopting, more positive outlook, more positive way of lensing the world. It's just demonstrably better for your health. So classic examples: one insult outweighs 5 compliments, one betrayal destroys years of trust, bad news spreads faster than good news, losses psychologically hurt more than equivalent gains feel good, fear conditioning occurs faster than safety conditioning, social rejection activates powerful distress systems. The brain often treats potential threats as more urgent than opportunities because evolutionarily, missing a threat could be fatal, while missing a reward might merely be inconvenient. So,
Yep.
yes, that is the reality as to why those initial emotional knee-jerk reactions to phenomena are generally going to be that of negativity bias. And it's much more common than having positivity bias be the emotional knee-jerk reaction for that very reason. Now, this, in my opinion, should be overcome and can be overcome. Our cognition can actually be trained to lean more into positive reactions and interactions with phenomena in the emotional knee-jerk reactions sense of what we're talking about. So it's important to understand that this stuff is not set in stone, although there is good reason to understand that we do have an ingrained gene level and some meme level negativity bias leanings initially when we're thinking. So the evolutionary foundation of negativity bias, the evolutionary logic is straightforward. Imagine 2 ancestral humans. Human A ignores rustling bushes, assumes everything is safe, occasionally gets eaten. Human B over-detects threats, startles easily, wastes energy, survives longer. Natural selection strongly favors asymmetric caution. So essentially, like, being unreasonable by way of negativity bias isn't necessarily going to serve you poorly when it comes purely to survival. But in the situation we find ourselves in generally on this planet, we are primarily interested in thrival, simply surviving, simply being able to get from meal to meal with, living in a cardboard box for a shelter. But there is that worry of trying to get enough food to survive from meal to meal. Trying to find clean water. These are the kinds of things that it is true you could find yourself in a situation like that, and it is true that some people are in a situation like that. But if you are not in that survival situation, it is causing a detriment to your well-being, to your physical, mental, and social health, to be thinking and acting in this way.
Yep.
So this creates what evolutionary psychologists sometimes call error management, asymmetry, smoke detector principle, threat prioritization systems. The nervous system evolved under conditions where false negatives could be catastrophic, false positives were often survivable. So the brain evolved to overweigh danger, social exclusion, contamination, betrayal, uncertainty, status loss, mortality cues. But, so we don't sit here and commit the logical fallacy, the naturalistic fallacy. Just because this is part of our nature, it doesn't mean that anything that emerges should simply be deemed good. There are improvements to be made based on what we've come to understand about our well-being. The neuroscience of negativity bias, so several neural systems are implicated. The amygdala, the Joseph Ledoux and others helped demonstrate the amygdala's role in threat detection and emotional salience. Negative stimuli often produces stronger amygdala activation, faster attentional capture, and enhanced memory consolidation. The amygdala is not simply a fear center. It detects biological relevance and uncertainty, but threatening stimuli disproportionately activate it. So
our salience network is what that's a part of, and it gets hijacked by the amygdala. The amygdala, and then the default mode network starts spinning narratives to make sense of the fear.
Correct.
So it becomes a cascade loop, and it is correct. We had predators. We had to have that asymmetric threat detection.
Yes.
We don't have to have now. And people be like, "Well, the world's terrible. It's horrible. It's horrible." There's a lot of bad shit. Yeah, there is. That doesn't mean that people are walking around murdering each other, like knocking on doors and just blowing each other away. It's not happening, right? Not on a regular basis. It depends on where you live. This is contextual.
But
right?
for most
it really
people,
depends on where you live.
Like even statistically, for most people, you will never encounter any kind of situation that would justify your survivalistic calculus that is causing detriment to your well-being. Again, this is why positive utilitarianistic thinking should be made primary, in that you have a goal. Let's say even if you're a Christian, right? Your positive goal of serving the Lord, let's say. What I'm arguing is that should be made primary to your instincts of survival by way of negative utilitarianist suffering avoidance calculus.
The meta ethic here is, and you and I agree on this, to even be able to worship God, we have to be able to stay alive longer to do that longer. And so the meta ethic is, for that to even be possible at all, we have to pay attention to our cognitive and body systems so that we can stay alive longer to worship God longer. So I don't know how you get behind that, but when people ask me, why do you care about well-being? The reason you can ask that question, right? And so it becomes very difficult at that point.
Well, yeah, and something important about that is every human being of sound mind, in almost any case imaginable, agrees with the axiom, the presupposition, that health is preferential to sickness. It is going to be really rare for you to find any human being throughout history to actually, they might be insane, right? But but in their actions,
genetic mutation,
right?
Yeah,
that their actions are really having them come to the conclusion that, like, no, I actually want to be sick as opposed to healthy. So when we talk about well-being, we are really just talking about physical, mental, and social health. And of course, in my case, by way of my moral quest, I'm looking to maximize that for myself and those around me. We went through the amygdala. I'm going to finish this reading, and then we can open up the discussion towards these biases. So cortisol and stress systems. Negative experiences trigger HPA axis activation, cortisol release, sympathetic nervous system mobilization. So for anyone that's ever dealt with high levels of anxiety, stress, panic disorder even, we're talking about the sympathetic nervous system mobilization, and often cases being too mobilized. So this can happen by way of just thinking poorly, thinking badly about the world by virtue of well-being. It would
Automatic
be, yeah,
catastrophization. Automatic catastrophization. Our brains go there because of that asymmetric threat detection. Then we get to the default mode and spinning narratives because we have to survive, right? That's what our brain's thinking, but it's causing us errors. It's
Right.
causing us to predict way incorrectly, like the overclocking of the biases, right?
Right, exactly. Now let's look at attention networks, threat-related stimuli. Threat-related stimuli interrupt ongoing cognition, narrow attentional focus, increase vigilance. This is adaptive in acute danger, but can become maladaptive in modern informational environments. I hope that's clear. But if you're going around making negative utilitarianistic thinking, suffering avoidance calculus primary, and you're engaging in this adaptive acute danger seeking, right? And making that primary. This is going to be generally maladaptive from a physical, mental, and social health perspective.
Really quick, you
yeah.
are putting an outrageous amount of pressure on your system, and
Yes.
that makes you make bad decisions. It makes you make really bad decisions for your health and other people's health. So having this extra stress and pressure on you, horrible. You need to get that down.
Right.
So,
Now we get to memory recall, which is such an important part of negativity bias, right? This part is incredibly important. Memory asymmetry. Negative memories are often more durable, more detailed, more emotionally vivid. This is called mood congruent and emotionally enhanced memory consolidation. Examples would be traumatic humiliation remembered for decades, criticism replayed repeatedly, social embarrassment encoded strongly. However, positivity can also create strong memory when tied to attachment, novelty, meaning, transcendence, peak emotional states. So negativity bias is statistical, not absolute. So something
that's because
to
of the
yeah.
That's because of the asymmetry threat detection. That's exactly why. Yeah.
Exactly. Now, there's a lot of people out there that view the memory process in our cognition as something that is recalling direct information, and we are just repeating that direct information. Of course, that's not how cognition works. We are reconstructing our memories.
Yep.
That is why memories become distorted, and often they become distorted by our bias way of viewing, whether it be positive or negative, particular memories.
What that ties to is trauma. And everybody hears trauma and they think clinical stuff. No. Trauma can be anything from a cut on your finger, an emotional insult, or the really bad PTSD stuff that we all hear about in war and stuff, right? That is remembered by your body from the moment you started taking in information through transducing through your senses when you're born, pretty much. So any type of trauma is programmed in there. And when you are doing this memory reconsolidation in the moment, right? It is attempting to understand all of that in the system and make your identity in the moment make sense from the past. That is technically what's happening. There's a lot more to it, but in general, yeah.
Yes. Now we get to something we all should be noticing if we're paying attention to the logic of society. Social negativity bias. Human social systems strongly amplify negative information. Examples: scandals outperform good deeds, outrage spreads rapidly, gossip prioritizes reputational threat, betrayal is heavily weighted, one moral failure can dominate identity judgments. Research in social cognition shows negative traits are often seen as more diagnostic than positive traits. Example, dishonest. We hear this, dishonest or grifter, or these kinds of things may define character more strongly than honest, because honesty is expected baseline behavior. This relates to norm violation detection, coalition management, and trust calibration.
All very important in a society or any dyadic group.
Right. Loss aversion. Behavioral economics formalized negativity bias through loss aversion. Work associated with Daniel Kahneman, who is someone I cite in my forthcoming book, and Amos Tversky, found people generally experience losses more intensely than equivalent gains. For example, losing $100 hurts more than gaining $100 feels good. This became central to prospect theory, behavioral economics, and decision theory. The conclusion being that, loss is simply just greater than gain. This asymmetry influences investing, politics, relationships, marketing, warfare, ideological fear appeals, etc. Media negativity bias. Modern media ecosystems exploit negativity bias heavily. Negative content generates attention, emotional arousal, sharing behavior, engagement, tribal activation. Hence, outrage algorithms, we have outrage algorithms, doom scrolling, fear-based headlines, catastrophe fixation. The informational environment becomes distorted because attention is not equal to reality frequency. Aviation safety may improve while headlines make the world feel more dangerous. This creates availability heuristic distortion, chronic anxiety, polarization, and things like cynicism. Cynicism is a big one. It's one of the most common emergences I hear especially when I'm honing in on where do great or good thinkers need the most improvement. I notice within some of their philosophy, there is cynicism doing the thinking for them. You need to uproot and throw away any cynicism in your processing. It's just not what it should not be welcome. Cynicism is riddled with cynicism. Just de facto leans on bias. Because the question is, well, why are you being cynical? Well, because of how this makes me feel. It's like, oh, okay, and what particular thing makes you feel that way? Oh, well, it's this particular issue. Okay, and then what about all of this other, stuff that I would consider to be, on the pro side, the positive side, the optimistic side of this given issue? Why doesn't that weigh as heavily and cause you to be less cynical, or even remove cynicism from this way you're conceptualizing the issue? And oftentimes there is no answer for that. It's like, well, because the negative feels stronger. It's like, yeah, but just because the negative feels stronger, that doesn't mean that ought dictate that you cynically lens this particular individual or instance. Depression and negativity bias. Clinical depression often intensifies negativity bias. Depressed cognition tends towards negative attentional filtering, pessimistic future projection. This is where we talked about optimism, the temporal layer. Self-critical rumination, overgeneralization, reward dampering. This is related to cognitive triad models, altered reward circuitry, serotonergenic dysfunction, chronic stress systems. Importantly, depression may not simply be, quote, sadness. Like, there's a lot of ignorance around depression. It often involves salience imbalance, reward collapse, motivational suppression, learned helplessness dynamics. Okay, what does everyone think about negativity bias? Anything
You
to
know, I
say
think
on
everything you just read.
that? Right.
Everything you just read is in my system. So,
Scotty, too
I guess
high?
I'm surprised that this isn't already like obvious to everyone. I feel like I've known this stuff for like years now.
That's good.
Mhm.
That's good.
That's good, yeah.
You know, there are a lot of people who, you know, lean into negative utilitarianistic ways of lensing, making that primary. Like Jordan Peterson promotes this, for example, and he is the most popular intellectual on the planet. So yeah, the question would be, well, you know, I wonder how many of these followers are, you know, following in the footsteps of the negative utilitarianist. And the hope would be that they would see that what should be made primary is positivity, optimism, being the temporal layer. So, yeah, it's an important thing to realize that the way you're thinking about the world, the way you're lensing the world, can be causing detriments to your physical, mental, and social health. So we should focus on ways that are reliably going to, help you maximize your well-being. So,
I feel like,
yeah,
I feel like our media, is, does this, and I think that they do. It seems to me that they do a lot to keep people panicking or something, or like, because it seems like very negative, like the bias on
But
even when
why-
there's nothing.
Yeah.
Even when it seems like there's no news to report, which is
Oh, I see what you're saying, Robin. Are you saying that like when news stations end up like tagging onto people's negativity bias because a lie can go around the world 10 times before the truth has even left the door, kind of thing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I had my mic over
because
there.
your
But it goes
intentionality, Robin, one thing I wanted to sort out, because you mentioned intentionality by way of the media, right? Of saying, like, I think they're trying to keep us this. I don't think that's the case at all. I don't have any evidence that there's some conspiracy that's happening. However, I do have evidence that media understands that negativity bias is more interesting, of a higher interest.
Not just
to human-
interesting.
Yeah.
Not just interesting.
Well,
Money.
That's what I mean. By way of
Yes.
interest, we click, we examine, we make content about these
Right.
This negativity lensing, and that's just an aspect of our fundamental nature. Now, you don't have to engage with it. You don't have to do it. Is an important thing to recognize. Like I said earlier, your cognition can be trained to like, yeah, okay, a big news event happened. I'm either interested in it or I'm not. But there is the negativity bias leaning when it comes to what we value, or what we prefer to taste media wise. That is going to cause some to be kind of victims of the algorithms, because there hasn't been this update in their cognition to recognize their own biases.
Yeah.
well, like,
Yeah.
would someone lying, like being caught lying about, like promoting, like false election claims, and
Well,
were,
are they lying or just being stupid?
well, they were accused. They had to pay $787 million for lying.
Because they got it wrong, or because they were shown to be purposefully lying. Two different things, right?
they were shown to be lying.
Yeah.
It was defamation.
Yeah. So if someone can be demonstrated to be lying, then you have a case, right?
Yeah, yeah, they did. I mean, like they lost the lawsuit to $787 million because of their lying.
So in that case, you have one check mark on the side of news media does this, but that wouldn't be sufficient justification for that claim. Like that's just, it's better to be specific. It's better to, there's wisdom in specificity. So if the claim is, in these instances where they are caught lying, like, they should be punished, they shouldn't be doing that, etc., as opposed to saying the media X.
Yeah, I should have said Fox News.
Well, I mean, but again, Robin, Fox News is like, it's not wise to make these sweeping, overgeneralized claims. Like, you could say that, Fox News has a propensity to do this, and then what we would want to see is, we would want to hear the argument as to why you think it's more than other stations, and if it is, how often does this occur? Sounds like the kind of lawsuit, the kind of defamation lawsuit you're talking about is quite rare.
And I think it's very important also to distinguish between like actual like news segments and political pundits talking about the news and framing it in all sorts of ways and
giving
lying
their opinions.
and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, because sometimes people will say, "Oh, well, this person gave their opinion, and when they cited the information that which their opinion was based on, they lied." And it's like, well, how do you know they lied? Like, more often than not, like we can easily make a claim that, by my epistemic standards, they're being stupid there, because they didn't even get the facts right. But people, again, we're talking about negativity bias here, leaning into they're lying, they're being dishonest, they're being a grifter. It's like this is the signals we're looking for when we're trying to identify negativity bias. I want to move on to the positivity bias section. So positivity bias is more it's less natural to us than negativity bias. It refers to multiple overlapping phenomena. So optimism bias, humans often believe bad things happen to others and not themselves. Good outcomes are more likely for themselves, associated with future planning, resilience, and risk underestimation. Self-enhancement bias. Most people rate themselves above average morally, above average intelligence, above average kindness. Statistically implausible at population scale to actually have a good understanding of whether you do sit above others when it comes to average morality, average intelligence, average kindness. Positivity offset. When threat is absent, humans tend to mildly explore, affiliate, create, and seek reward. The positivity offset supports curiosity, bonding, civilization building, innovation. Memory positivity effects. Older adults often remember emotionally positive information more than negative information. This may relate to emotional regulation goals, motivational shifts across their lifespan. Broaden and build theory. Research associated with Barbara Fredrickson proposes that positive emotions broaden cognition. Yes, we talk about this so often, and I talk about it in my first book. We should want to move away from cognitive rigidity towards cognitive flexibility. Negative states narrow focus towards survival. Positive states expand creativity, increase exploration, improve flexibility, build social bonds, facilitate long-term resource accumulation. Examples would be play, humor, curiosity, inspiration, awe, love. This is important because civilization itself may depend heavily on positivity systems like art, science, cooperation, philosophy, invention. When negativity is adaptive, negativity bias is not inherently irrational. It becomes adaptive when threats are real, stakes are high, vigilance is necessary, danger detection matters. So examples would be engineering, safety, aviation, medicine, cybersecurity, parenting, military strategy. So, and then the point here is that we shouldn't be talking about whether negativity bias should be on or off. We should be talking about what should be made primary. It would be reckless to be trying to move away from any kind of suffering avoidance calculus. That would be reckless. But making that secondary so that it is always activated as part of the thinking machinery, while having the positive utilitarian made primary is
It should be
very
contextual,
important.
not automatic. It should be contextual and not automatic. You should be able to understand this is happening to me, right? And then you make your decision.
Yeah.
So.
When negativity becomes maladaptive. So problems emerge when negativity systems become chronically activated. This can produce anxiety disorders, paranoia, tribal hatred, doom thinking, learned helplessness, nihilism, media addiction, chronic outrage. In modern digital ecosystems, negativity bias can become decoupled from actual survival relevance. The nervous system evolved for immediate physical threats, not 24/7 global catastrophe feeds. Yes.
Yep.
That felt good.
Very curious on the question of nihilism, because I think that Jordan Peterson was very much trying to veer people away from nihilism, but I think he was going about it through like reinforcing like the idea of meaning through like metaphysics and religion and stuff like that, while what we're trying to do here is just change your lensing to have a more optimistic expectation. And
Anka, you can promote good health by way of negative utilitarianistic lensing, and you can promote anti-nihilism and all of this stuff. Nihilism is just one of the things negativity systems activate. And again, that doesn't even mean that you can't reconceptualize or organize nihilism to mean something positive. Like a lot of people who say that
some people use it as a way to liberate their thinking in a way.
Yeah.
When you say that there's a meaning, that there is some kind of something that you ought to achieve, some kind of a thing that you ought to have, it can be kind of constraining to certain people. While if you say, well, it's all yours to determine, and essentially no one's meaning is better than anyone else's meaning, you're kind of liberating their creative side.
Well, no one's meaning, my meaning is better than someone else's anti-well-being meaning. It's not intrinsically, ultimately, objectively better, but I believe it is better because of how I feel about myself and my fellow humans. Does that make sense, Anka?
Yeah, I think so, but I really believe that most people, even if they have bad what I consider bad ideology, that usually comes from them thinking that that's a way to like a utopian life, meaning everybody has like what they prescribe to the world, not because they want it to be worse, but because they think it's going to make it better.
Yeah, but you just went over to the descriptive zone. We were talking in the prescriptive zone. Does that make sense? Like, we were talking about whose virtues, whose prescriptions are better than others, and then you went to describing like, well, I think people, descriptively are trying X. I don't necessarily disagree that it's common for people to think that they have the right goals, they have the right prescriptions at play.
Yeah, of course, I agree with you. Like, if we actually take what everyone's ism, I think we can weigh it against, what's like empirically better in the long run,
Well, yeah, I mean, but you have to select values. So what I'm emphasizing is that there is a war of ideas in the realm of prescriptions. There are Muslims who think it's fine to force women to wear burqas, for example, as one example. I think that's a disgusting idea. It's an idea I am at war with in the war of ideas. So, just flat out, I think, just me as a moral creature, I think there are better ideas out there than many of the worst ideas that humanity has ever seen. For example, as a moral well-beingist, I can stand here and say the Nazis, with regards to expansionism, war, and the Holocaust, the genocide, it's easy for me to see as a moral well-beingist that they were unrighteous and bad, even though they would disagree in the 1940s and late 30s that with me on that. Many of them would. But yeah, we need human beings to, I think we need human beings to put their stake in the ground and fight for more high resolution, better morality by way, and when I say better, I mean morality that is seeking to maximize physical, mental, and social health for people. Yeah.
in life.
What does that mean? What does that mean for you? Like in the mind of Putin, like gonna steal man what you just said in Putin's point of view.
Yeah.
Like he sees being trans or being gay as a mental illness.
Right.
So he's fighting and putting his stake in the ground and expanding into the West.
Yep.
Because he thinks that it isn't liberty, it's actually just mental decline.
Yeah, so Putin is thinking the same way people used to think about homosexuals.
Yeah.
So Putin is he's demonstrably wrong based on the facts about human well-being. So, for example, it is a fact thus far that there's nothing about trans people that makes them intrinsically different than I when it comes to their capacity to maximize well-being for themselves and those around them. And that's the kind of moral calculus I care about. Now, if there was a human, a kind of human being, like for example, it's a horrible topic to talk about. It's very difficult to talk about in like a caring way. But pedophiles and pedophilia and pederasts, we have good reason to want to take away some of their rights at least. And what I mean by that is like, we don't want people who, let's say people who suffer from pedophilia, but they're not a pederast, they haven't preyed upon children, but they suffer from the neurological disorder. we don't want them to have access to parks or to be going to parks, being around children. We have good reason to believe that sect of humanity should be given different, should have some of their rights mitigated. And what does that mean when we come to trying to manage that situation? So what I'm saying is, if Putin was to say that same thing about pederasts or pedophilia, in that pederasts should be locked up, which I agree with, people who suffer from pedophilia, if we find out who they are, there is mandatory programming and rights restrictions we should put on people we know who suffer from pedophilia. So I think the trans issue that Putin is getting at, he's just full of shit on that from a moral well-beingist perspective. We can demonstrate the facts about how he's full of shit on that. But from a moral well-beingist perspective, we see the direct dangers of the, let's say, disorder of the mind that is pedophilia. And some people will say, well, why is it a disorder of the mind? Because we can demonstrate that wanting to carry out those acts against children is demonstrably bad for their physical, mental, and social health. So that would be my answer, that Putin is just wrong about that. So I would engage in the war of ideas with Putin on his view of trans people, and yeah.
Okay. I had a bit of a question. I also posted it in the chat, but for me, war is very important, and I think for many Europeans right now, the war, and our governments are saying impending war, is a very important thing to keep in mind. And since you guys are all big philosophy nerds, and I'm not, I'd like to know what you guys think of the impact that war has had on different schools of thought within philosophy, and if you guys could meaningfully talk about that.
I will tell you that I see so many professed moral systems fail when we start talking about war, where they will build these ideal moral systems and moral metrics based on when everything's going well with humanity. But the way I view war and the phenomena of war, that all war, and this is where we get into high resolution moral discussion. Once I know we're in a high resolution philosophical moral discussion is when we start separating and talking about differently bad versus good and righteousness versus wrongfulness. So the question about war is, I would say all war is bad because of the negative well-being outcomes that are born out of war. That does not mean all war is wrongful. Some war is wrongful. Some war is righteous. I used the example of the United States of America. I believe the United States of America was righteous in going to war with Japan, Germany, the Axis powers in the 1940s. And that does not mean that, just to clarify.
Oh, sorry.
And just that does not mean all of the acts that the United States engaged in, or let's say England engaged in during World War II, were righteous. They were still all bad. But for example, I would point out that I often point out is the bombing of Dresden was simply a revenge act from the English, and unnecessarily killed. I forget how many people it was, but I believe it was over 50,000 people, simply in retaliation for the bombs that were dropped in London. And so we can see, and
also for the complete bombing of Rotterdam, like the complete annihilation
of course, of Rotterdam,
of the city of Rotterdam.
So what I would say is the war was already won by the Allied forces. Everybody knew this, minus some of the indoctrinated sycophants of Hitler's who were standing by his side to the end. But even them probably knew the end was near. But yeah, so all the evidence we had suggested that, yeah, the Allies, they're going to win this war. They're pushing towards Berlin. The Eastern Front is pushing even harder. So yeah, Dresden, completely unrighteous in my opinion. And I've argued with people before who say, well, it's righteous because they did it to us, we can do it to them. And I dismiss eye for an eye moral calculus. I think it's ancient, outdated. I think it results in bad well-being outcomes. And what I care about most is the moral well-being are the outcomes to physical, mental, and social health, and also the drive towards maximizing those outcomes. So there is a bit of a deontological element to my philosophy as well. But yeah, I hope that makes it clear that it's important to understand the difference between bad righteousness, like a police officer having to shoot a crazy person who's running at them with an axe, right? That's bad. All of that, bad. However, I think the police officer is righteous in shooting that person.
Based. Thank you.
Yeah. Anyone else want to weigh in?
Yeah, I actually spoke to Vladimir Putin about his issues recently, right? And he has taken in, my suggestion to have an, voluntary army of transsexuals who would fight against the pederasts, and now nobody wants to, oppress the transsexuals anymore, and also now nobody wants to be a pederast either.
Well,
The influence of the South goes deep.
Thank you, Mr. Putin. Perhaps now we will let you off the hook for all of your war crimes, because that seems to satisfy enough of the wrongdoing.
It took me time to suggest it to him, but eventually he listened, and here we are.
Does anyone else have any thoughts on war? I think it's an important thing to learn to articulate from, whether you're a moral well-beingist or not. If you're a Christian, if you're a Muslim, if you're someone who claims to be a secular humanist, let's say, and there's something within the secular humanist manifesto that you're pulling from about war, it's important to be able to articulate these things to yourself and to those around you. Because once we can articulate these things, we can better behave towards them when it comes to ethics. So,
regarding what Intrameme asked, right? I would actually be more curious to hear not how the philosophy of onlookers changes during wartime, but how the philosophy of the actual participants of the war changes after wartime, right? Those who actually fought.
Yep. I've studied a lot of this.
I think that morale of the army is very important, because if they know that they are doing it for righteous reasons, their morale will be higher and probably less chances of PTSD.
Yes.
But if they know that they are committing some kind of injustice, the morale is low, and you will have a higher chance of later regret and potential PTSD.
So, imagine, Anka, if you're let's say you're fighting in World War I, right? And you're in the trench war, and your side makes an important advance to the next trench, and you get to the next enemy trench, and it is riddled with brain matter, festering, rotting bodies, and just dead people with horrifying looks on their faces of meeting death. And someone comes along, a colonel, general, whoever, comes along and says, "You see this, everyone? This is good. We're doing good here." It doesn't make coherent sense to people's fundamental sentimental feelings of what is good. We're looking at disgusting,
I don't know if that's true.
brutal things, and then the question. But I think if the general or the leader says, I know this is bad. I know this all looks and feels terrible. But we were righteous in doing it. I think that is a much more coherent message that more accurately maps on to human sentimentality. And I think I have the psychological
I don't think I
data
agree
to
here.
back it up.
Yeah,
isn't
in the
this?
first-
Oh,
sorry.
sorry. No, go ahead.
Yes, I was just gonna add that it sounds like in the first scenario, what happens is you kind of I mean, I assume that they got to the enemy trench and see what damage has been done, and so in the first scenario, what you're doing is you kind of dehumanizing them. You're saying that they that their death is a good thing, and you're sort of
Right.
devaluing their side of it. But on the other scenario, you're saying that this is very grave, but had to be done.
Yes. Correct.
And
Yes.
and of course that alters your own ability to. I mean, we all can see ourselves being in that trench, right? So, of course, if you're treating the people who you have defeated with respect, then you feel that you have the moral high ground, and if
Yes.
you just dismiss their existence, then it's almost like you're saying that some people should be lower than the I guess the winning side, and in the long run, your idea of humanity becomes kind of like very distorted, meaning that people have you yourself might have a lower value in the long run. So but yeah, in general that doesn't happen because everybody is like rah rah revenge. But
Right.
I think in a later time they start to see things because something might happen to their side where they can lose people, and then they will be fair to assume that the enemy should consider the good guys again, our side, as also less human, right? Because we've allowed ourselves to think of others as less human, and
Right.
if that's
But
allowed,
this is gonna
the other side
happen
is allowed
regardless.
to dehumanize us too.
Well, after
This is gonna happen
after
regardless.
in,
Before we move on, please,
after intermeme goes, I'm going to read. I've queued up a lot of reading here, but I'm going to read into the record the cognitive science elements that relate to this exact topic we're talking about. But intermeme, please go ahead first.
Yeah. So one thing that I do not completely agree with is that once you see people like dead in a trench and you've just like conquered that line, that when a colonel says this is good, it doesn't click. Well, I think of course it clicks. These people just tried to kill you. They are now dead. You have now survived.
So that's
Oh,
eye
this
for
is
an
good.
eye.
You have
moral-
survived.
That's eye for an eye.
No.
moral
This
calculus.
is not an eye for an eye. These people were going to shoot me if they had the chance. I would be dead if I did not kill them. Maybe it isn't.
Yeah.
Maybe it isn't good, but for
I
me, I
instead of-
survived.
So
which
one
is good.
second, you're confusing something. There's a difference between the descriptive nature of the situation and the prescriptive nature. We're talking about what is prescriptively better by our own moral standards when trying to conceive of the phenomena before us. You're describing, and giving descriptive reason as to why they could view this from like a self-defense perspective, right? If you didn't kill them, they were going to kill you. I don't think anyone's discounting that this can be conceptualized that way, but we're asking a deeper moral, ethical question about if you had to morally distinguish between good, bad, right, and wrong when looking at a sea of dead bodies or or coming across a death camp in Auschwitz, right? Again, from the Nazi perspective, it would be moral failure, in my opinion, if they were viewing those mounds of bodies, mass graves, as good things. They would be viewing them, if they were doing the correct moral calculus, in my opinion, as righteous acts that aren't good. But like, if you want to offer your prescription, if you're saying you think it's better for this to be lensed as good, then make that statement, because we are trying to make our own prescriptions right now.
Maybe I misunderstood you, but what I think Intermeme was just talking about is that the best outlook, for the best mindset for a soldier is to think of it as, I instead of an I. Okay, when he's fighting a soldier from another army.
Exactly. Not
Okay.
an eye for an eye. Like, not I'm killing this soldier because he killed my buddy. It's this guy is going to shoot a bullet through my head if he had the chance. So I will have to shoot a bullet through his. Otherwise, it's me.
Right.
And
So
I'm a self-preservating, like, biological.
Okay. Great example. So does that mean that when you successfully shoot a bullet through the head of that person who was trying to shoot me, do you, in your moral calculus, in your worldview, does it make more sense to you? Is it more coherent for you to say that that was a good thing you just did, blowing his brains all over the place? Or does it make more coherent sense to you to say, I was righteous in doing that to him? That's the
for
question.
me. For me, it's both. No, for me, it's both righteous and good.
You think it's good and righteous, right?
Yes.
Okay.
I think I had to, and I think it's good that I did it because now I survived.
Okay. Now, well, you think it's good that you did it because you survived, but you're avoiding the act itself. Is the bullet?
Oh, no, yeah,
hang on. Is the bullet you shot that blew up the brain? Is it good that your bullet blew up his brain?
Like, I am reasoning from what is going to happen after it passes his brain.
That's the easy thing.
Yes.
That's the easy thing to do. That's the easy thing to do. I'm asking you about the act of blowing their head apart. Do you think that particular act, because it is an act you just inflicted, do you think that is a good act or a righteous act or both? The actual act of blowing
hang on.
their
Can
head
I
up.
ask like a more clarifying? Like, we're still in the same context, right? It's not just the single act of like blowing someone's head up. Is that good or bad or righteous?
Don't worry about the context right now. This is where the moral calculus gets difficult. The act.
Okay, so
of
if
blowing
I'm
up
not in
this other
war,
person's-
then
yeah.
blowing up somebody else's head, just that, and I don't know anything about his state of mind and whatever.
Yeah.
And that's bad. Yes.
Okay, now if you're at war, does that mean all instances of heads being blown up by your bullet are good?
Not if it's a medic or a non-combatant. No. Yes. Of course. But if it's a combatant, yes, of course.
So any combatant, if you successfully hit them in the head with your bullet and their head explodes, you're saying that that's a good act.
Maybe I need to recant a bit.
No,
Hang on, let me add
that's
something.
okay. Let
Hang
me
on,
read
let me
this.
add something.
Yeah,
If somebody's surrendering, yes, all this different like
Right.
Geneva Convention shit. Like, if I have a guy in front of me that's an enemy combatant,
Yeah.
well, I mean, if he's gonna kill me,
It's starting to get
I'll
more
have to kill
difficult,
him.
hey?
I would.
I need to kill him. If he's gonna kill me, I have to kill him. I don't know. But maybe I'm just a bit too practical for this conversation, and this is more.
I think words, okay, are merely creating a gap here that doesn't really exist, and I would like to attempt to bridge it. Can we all agree that killing an enemy soldier should be labeled as an unfortunate necessity, but that it is good to satisfy necessities?
No.
Based.
No.
For me, yes, I agree.
It is. It depends on what necessities you're trying to satisfy.
Is it the necessity of survival, for example?
Yeah,
Yeah.
there are so many things you could do for the necessity of survival that you believe that would be bad things. If you're
Okay.
freezing to death, with a stranger, and
No,
you
fair
feel
enough. I
like
know I get where
you
you're
feel
going
like
with
you
this.
need to kill him to eat him in order to be able to survive a little bit longer. This should be viewed obviously as a bad.
Okay, fair enough. No, I agree with you. There exist costs which are too high. Fair enough. So
So-
let's include one.
So,
let's
Big
include
Yahoo,
one
can
other
I say something? Your attempts to simplify this moral issue is going to pull us away from the more important prescriptive kind of meta-ethical question we are asking and how it applies. I think that's happening, but let me do the reading first, and then we can all chime in. So, calling war good often creates a cognitive and moral tension because war almost always involves destruction, trauma, death, uncertainty, and long-term social damage. From a cognitive science perspective, human moral cognition tends to process, quote, good as something associated with flourishing, safety, cooperation, nurturance, and reduced suffering. War directly violates many, if not all of those evolved and socially reinforced institutions. But calling war righteous activates a different psychological and cognitive architecture entirely. This distinction matters a lot. So good and righteous trigger different cognitive systems. Good is usually processed as an outcome-oriented moral evaluation. So people hear reduced suffering, increased well-being, peace, cooperation, flourishing, stability. Righteous, however, is processed more as a duty, legitimacy, justified struggle, moral obligation, defense of sacred values, identity protection. These are psychologically distinct categories. A soldier may not believe war is good in the sense of pleasant, flourishing, or desirable, but they may believe participation is righteous because innocence must be defended, aggression must be resisted, loved ones are threatened, survival requires force, betrayal of duties feels morally worse than violence. So the cognition changes from war is beneficial to war is tragically necessary under these conditions. The second framing fits human cognition more naturally. Human moral cognition is deeply conflict sensitive. So modern cognitive science suggests humans evolved in environments where intergroup conflict was recurrent. This produced partially competing psychological systems: empathy cooperation systems, coalition defense systems. The brain appears to contain mechanisms for both: caring, aggression, fairness, tribal protection, vengeance, and self-sacrifice. Under normal, peaceful conditions, pro-social cognition dominates. Under perceived existential threat, coalition defense cognition intensifies. This includes heightened in-group bonding, moral polarization, sacred value protection. We see a lot of this in war. Increased tolerance for violence, framing enemies as dangerous or contaminating. This helps explain why soldiers and populations often describe wars not as good, but as necessary, honorable, righteous, defensive, just. The language reflects evolved threat processing systems. Righteous war reduces cognitive dissonance. There is a major psychological problem soldiers must solve. How can I participate in violence while still viewing myself as moral? Calling war good often fails because experience contradicts it. Soldiers see death, mutilation, civilian suffering, grief, fear, moral ambiguity, but righteousness reframes participation through moral duty rather than pleasure or goodness. This reduces cognitive dissonance. Leon Festinger's theory of cognitive dissonance suggests humans experience psychological discomfort when actions and moral identity come into conflict. A soldier who thinks killing is evil, but also I must protect my family and community, faces severe internal tension. Righteous struggle acts as a reconciliation mechanism. Violence becomes morally contextualized, suffering becomes sacrificial, duty supersedes comfort, meaning overrides horror. This is psychologically stabilizing. So, sacred values change cost-benefit processing. Research from cognitive anthropology and moral psychology shows humans treat some values as sacred. These include homeland, children, religion, tribe, liberty, honor, survival. When sacred values are perceived as threatened, people stop thinking in purely utilitarian terms. Normal trade-off cognition weakens. Instead, sacrifice becomes meaningful, martyrdom becomes conceivable, extreme risk tolerance increases, self-preservation can diminish. The brain processes necessary harm differently than pleasurable harm. Neuroscience research suggests humans distinguish between sadistic violence and instrumental violence. Instrumental violence is violence perceived as serving a protective or morally necessary function. This distinction strongly alters emotional processing. For example, defensive aggression activates different emotional narratives than cruelty. Soldiers often morally frame violence as protection rather than enjoyment. Intentionality heavily shapes moral judgment. This is why saying war is good can sound psychopathic or celebratory, but war was necessary to stop genocide activates moral reasoning centered around tragic obligation. The latter better matches how most healthy human moral cognition operates, therefore leads to higher levels of physical, mental, and social health. There's a bit more here, but any thoughts? Did we lose our participants? They didn't want to hear the information. Interesting.
I think it's also very important that we don't, in war, I think the messaging of the other side as being evil is very dehumanizing, and it's like it can send soldiers to have a righteous war because you're fighting evil, but at the same time, that means that the other side has also the right to call you evil, and I think that like our generalization of the enemy as like a force of evil is driving some kind of a tribal instinct that we have. And instead of treating war as something solemn, people make it into like some kind of a righteous and good thing, even if they don't necessarily celebrate the deaths of their enemy. There's also just that kind of generalization of the enemy that I think also bleeds into like civilian perception that the other side is evil.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Demonization is a great cancer of the human condition. It can, you were talking, Anka, earlier about boosting morale and things like that. On a really low resolution level, there are some pragmatic purposes as to why people would demonize the other side. But I think those are bad ways of promoting the righteousness of a war conflict. I think that there are way better ways, in talking about the righteous. It's like you are going to see, bad out there. This is going to be bad, but keep in mind the reason why that we have been pushed into this decision to go to war. Make those coherent and understand that we're not here selling a delusion that that like it's good to blow somebody's head off. Anyone who's had to experience that or go through it is going to tell you there's nothing good about that. But they will talk to you about the necessity of it. But if someone is leaning into, promoting cruelty and saying like the best thing of my life was, me blowing the heads off of all of these enemies, there is likely trauma-related or otherwise related cognitive issues that are worth investigation, in the sense of like, it would be a worrying signal for someone to bask in that cruelty. To me, as a
A
moral
hypothetical
well-being.
question. If somebody were to do that, say just a lowly soldier were to say, record themselves saying something like that they enjoyed, that was the best day of their life or something like that. Is the higher command, should they be obligated to punish that soldier for doing that? Because in a way they're kind of like speaking for the army.
Yeah,
And
I think it's more about like not punishing the words. It's more about how is their well-being doing? How are they doing from a mental, physical, and social health perspective? Thomas, you're unmuted, and I can hear you, brother.
another thing that happens because of the dehumanization is less chance of negotiation, because you just assume that the other side will never change and will never be able to come to the table because they are inherently evil. And so the chances of coming to some kind of negotiation or wanting to give any grounds to the other side the chances of that will be less.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think prescribing better usage of language is something that I'm a fan of, but I also think people need the freedom of speech, freedom of expression available to them for the reasons of the effect of expression, the effect that has on your well-being. So you don't want to mitigate and tear away people from being able to express themselves when they're feeling something strongly, like in the example we're talking about. But I think much like there would be professional standards of the kinds of things you can say as a teacher, there should be those standards for the kinds of things you're allowed to say as a professional soldier or in the military. And I know they do have some of those things, but I do think that there's virtue in that. It's funny that those guys left when the information started getting read.
Mm-hmm. How did we get to war? I forget.
The individual Invamir or whatever his name was brought up the question of, how do you parse war morally? But I think there's much to be developed in viewing the act of blowing someone's head up, even in the case of war, as a good thing. That the act itself is a good thing. It's a righteous thing.
It should be viewed as maybe necessary and solemn thing.
and the more detailed calculus from my perspective as a moral well-beingist is that you are eliminating completely their ability to ever be able to maximize well-being for themselves or even have well-being, because they're dead, and you did that. So when I'm looking at the good and bad of the moral philosophy, there isn't an instance where you would do that act, where that act to me would be viewed as good, but it can be righteous.
Yeah, war is in a way just a failure to get to, negotiate with that kind of mentality in mind. Because if you had the mentality of maximizing everybody's well-being, you would leave war as just a last resort. But a lot of times we see war as being very quickly accessible because one side has more means.
Well, yeah, war as a last resort is a good prescription. Some things are non-negotiable and should be non-negotiable to a moral agent. For example, there are still, and I have to find the information, but I saw a horrifying documentary where there's this tribe in the sub-Saharan region that still practices the chief of the tribe. As soon as the young girl has her first period, the chief of the tribe gets to have his way with her sexually. That, to me, is a non-negotiable moral principle. That is a crime against humanity, and I don't give a rat's ass how deep that runs in the culture, but that should be invaded and stopped. Now, the question is, shouldn't we just warn them and tell them the ramifications if they don't stop doing this? Yes, diplomatic efforts should be made, of course. But there are some things that are just non-negotiable. If they come back and say, well, we heard what you said. Well, okay, fine. Then every, second girl that is born gets to be victimized by our chief. No, this is not a negotiation. That's not what this is. This is us telling you, if you keep doing that, we're coming in and we're going to occupy you until you get this right. And I find that to be, again, there's not much good in any of this, but it's righteous to do that.
That's really interesting because I tend to agree with you on like a very visceral level, but at the same time, I wonder like if what we're talking about is basically uprooting a culture that we consider immoral, where does it stop? Because they can say, well, this is our culture, this is how we live, and this is what social order we've developed. And
Anka, this is what I've been trying to explain to you, that they're in the intersubjective space, the prescriptive space. This is a war. I'm at war with the Muslim communities around the world in an ideological war, right? War of ideas, not in a physical war. I'm not in a physical war with them, but I'm in a war of ideas with the Muslim countries and communities around the world that enslave women into burqas. I'm at war with that same African tribe that I was talking about because they're allowing the practice of this pederast. So what I'm saying is my moral standard is superior to yours because it is protecting the well-being of these girls. They can't give willing, informed consent. And I don't care if they believe in their African tribe that they can. So I am here to tell them as a moral agent, I will not stand idly by when I know that they are violating and engaging in rape of these young girls.
I hear you, and my pushback to that is that we do know of Muslim communities that don't do that. You can look at a country like Turkey that has
I didn't say there weren't.
that is Muslim. Sorry, what?
I didn't say there weren't.
Oh, but I guess when you're saying that you're at war with Islam, for example,
No, Anka, you got to listen to my claim. I said I was at war with those Muslim nations and communities that enslave women into the burqa. That was my
okay,
claim.
I understand now. I agree with you. I am also against that, but I think that in saying it without the caveat of saying, for example, I support Muslim communities that are much more progressive, you can kind of like make the more progressive Muslim feel like they are also under attack. So I think it's. I'm not saying that I disagree with you. I'm just saying it's important to include the fact that there are good communities.
I don't think you need to do that in the same way that I call out certain Christian communities in the United States. I don't need to add to my claim or to my proposition that because I'm talking about a very specific issue. I don't want to add any levity of or like kind of like hand holding the other Muslims who would somehow they're not smart enough to understand that I'm not talking about them. Hell no. I completely disagree with you. I'm making a very specified claim of who I'm engaging in a war of ideas with. And you're saying, well, but you have to mention the other people that you're not even referencing. No, not at all. It actually to some of these people can make it feel like they are somehow don't have a moral obligation or responsibility to that issue. And the Muslims who aren't enslaving women into the burqa, they have a moral obligation just like I do. And they even are coming from a more poignant perspective, being a Muslim themselves, taking up arms in the war of ideas and fighting against this. So I think the problem is you heard me criticizing an aspect of Muslim culture, and then you felt the need to defend Islam or Islamic culture in general. But I think that we've been talking about negativity bias today. I think that negativity bias caused you to hear that differently and respond with the straw man.
Yeah, because you can say that I was coming from the perspective of avoiding suffering for people that potentially were not part of the group you're targeting.
Well, I'm not targeting. I don't think it's of any confusion to people who are listening, without the negativity or positivity bias of like specifically what I said. And this happens too with some people like Sam Harris, where Sam Harris will make a very specific claim about a crisis, very specific claim. And then I will hear people talk about it like Sam Harris was making a general sweeping statement about like, brown people can't be trusted or Muslims can't be trusted or something like that. And I hear this all the time, but I do think it has to do with negativity and the positivity bias issue.
I think it's a pretty common thing once you get used to around here to the war, the use of the word war. There's like a war of ideals of some kind going on a lot. Maybe that's not a language that everybody's accustomed to yet. Like,
well, I mean, when someone says war of ideas,
Yeah.
it's important to think about what that could mean, right? If someone is to say, "Oh, are they saying that the war of ideas is as important, as deadly, as catastrophic as the as World War II?" No, I mean that would just be someone just deriving that from the concept, right?
Yeah.
When you're
Yeah.
ready, I did want to push back against something you were saying earlier.
Sure.
Well, both Annika and Pangburn. So this came down to something Annika said, actually, and I'm not pushing back strongly against it, but I can see exceptions. So it was about demonizing the other side. And I'm going to try and steel man as much as I can your position, which is to say this othering that happens encourages possibly worse atrocities because it's fundamentally, fundamentally appealing to an evolutionary bias of the worst kind, maybe. Would that be fair to say?
That was for Anka, right?
Well, either of you. Vanka's not responding.
Well, I mean, yeah. Are you? Yeah, I can give the reasons as to why I'm anti-demonization. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's fine. That's fine. And this goes. Okay, so likewise, I'm not for it as such. But I would say this that. I could make an argument that this could be for the moral good, right? So, and this would go along with the arguments for instance, the bombings of Hiroshima and Naku.
Yeah, I guess you would have
the other place offhand.
You'd have to show me where dehumanization could be righteous. Because
what I'm saying,
yeah.
Sure. Well, so what I'm saying here is that demoralizing the other side is a good way to defeat an army, especially when you're against such foes as the Japanese. And basically, when I say demonizing, I mean inspiring your troops and trying to demoralize them that you will be more, effective at destroying them than they will be defending, shall we say, if you're near the end, so to speak. And I think there's an argument for Dresden in there as well, by the way, just to point out the two things we've spoken about before.
Yeah.
I'm not convinced, but I'm just trying to put some pushback so you've got something to talk about.
Yeah. I see righteous. I can see righteousness in demoralization in war. So, if you are, and you're right that in war, when the other side is becoming demoralized, I think it does matter to me as a moral agent how that is being done, the acts behind the demoralization. So if they become demoralized by way of, chemical warfare or by way of torture, for example, kind of the Quentin Tarantino Inglourious Bastards tortures,
Guantanamo Bay, yeah.
that are finding their way into the ears of the Germans. This would be something I don't think is righteous or good. But if demoralization is coming by rhetoric, propaganda, I can see this being righteous. But I would, once we get into things that are starting to reduce empathy activation, that is when I call foul from a moral well-beingist perspective. So if my soldiers were starting to view the enemy as vermin, animals, demons, contaminating agents of some kind, a cancer. I don't think I would want my soldiers' empathy being reduced in that way because of the higher chance that offers, just simply from a cognitive perspective, that they will commit more brutal acts that would seemingly be okay for them to commit against a vermin, or a contaminating agent, just snuff it out with poison or burn it alive, and find joy in it because it is a cancer. There's that dehumanization does reduce empathy activation. So that's the part where I don't want to have an unempathetic soldier out there fighting. I don't want them leaning into these kinds of, war crimes that they feel morally justified because they're less than human. I mean, that kind of dehumanization from the Nazis to the SS with regards to the Jews, made it a lot easier for them to have this empathy reduction towards these other human beings, making those crimes easier to carry out and reconcile. So that's kind of the thing I'm more concerned about when it comes to dehumanization. I see people do it in less dire cases with like public intellectuals they don't like.
Right. Yeah,
like, this person's a cancer and they should never be heard from. And I hear this language, and then I'll ask them some questions, but like, well, I mean, yeah, they're wrong about the trans issue. I think some of the stuff they have to say morally repugnant, but there's still a human being worth my moral care. And they're like, well, not mine. I'm like, well, I mean, if this person was to get run over by a bus tomorrow, would that bring you joy? Yep. It would be the greatest day of my life. It's like how some people reacted when Charlie Kirk got killed. I found it morally repugnant and disgusting. The things people were saying about Charlie Kirk, some things that were said, I understand, were done by way of dark humor, and I have much more patience and understanding for that than I do for people legitimately being like, yeah, he got it. Oh, I fucking love it. This makes me horny. Like, what? Like I get people are going to make pop culture jokes about tragedy. I've less quibbling with that. I don't like to police the joke sphere, but people who legitimately are like, yes, I'm so glad he got shot in the neck. I'm going to watch that video constantly over and over again. I love seeing that bullet go through his neck. Like, that's a sickness.
That's sickness. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we both agree on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't. Y'all know how fond I am of Mr. Trump, and I can't say that. No, I would not be disturbed immensely by watching him get shot. And that would bother me. So yeah, I think that there's a difference between, and too, what you were talking about, between what's righteous and what's good.
Yeah.
And Samos, that was Nagasaki.
Thank you very much, Nagasaki. Yeah.
And I think that actually, I'm very I have a lot of issues with our bombing of them, because I feel like that maybe it wasn't necessary to at least drop the second bomb anyway. I don't know.
Yeah, that's a tough one, Robin. Like, it's diving into the mentality of Japanese leadership at that time and where things were at. It's my biggest issue with it is where these bombs were dropped. They could have been dropped in areas that were more of a demonstration of the catastrophe that is about to befall them. And this was considered. But the feeling was that minus the death toll, there wouldn't be enough pressure towards governing bodies, towards the emperor, everyone who's involved in weighing in, if there weren't casualties related to the bombs themselves.
I just wonder why we didn't drop them on the emperor.
Well, I mean,
Like-
the death toll, Robin, the death toll would have been astronomically orders of magnitude higher if capitals in large cities were bombed.
Well, I'm
So-
not even sure.
There's a-
I don't
there's-
even know where the
there's a-
capital or like the emperor
Yeah,
is.
so,
but-
yeah. There's another reason as well, which is you need the emperor. You needed the emperor to surrender
Yes.
and tell his troops not to fight anymore.
Exactly.
Because he had already told them to fight to the death. No inch of their homeland shall be taken.
Yeah, the emperor was basically megaphoning what the military advisors, other
You've
leadership.
gone, Travis, for some
Oh.
reason.
Can you guys hear me? Check.
I can hear you.
Oh, you can hear me? Oh, okay. Might have been Simos that left. So yeah, I was saying can you guys still hear me?
Yep.
Oh, okay.
I can hear you. I think Simons is froze.
Oh, okay. Yeah, he might have lost internet. Yeah, so that consideration was a big one. Understanding that the message from the emperor being somewhat necessary to expedite the surrender was a real thing. So yeah, killing the emperor, someone who was basically worshipped like a god at that stage, would be a problem. But yeah, I mean, this whole idea of like, could we have dropped, and the second bomb luckily didn't hit the desired target. It landed a fair ways away from the area that was being targeted, so the casualties would have been bigger. But I do like the idea of like maybe using one of the bombs and then giving enough time, but there was time between the drops, so I don't know. It's a tough one, but it's not enough for anyone that cares about human suffering and trying to look at long-term goals of maximizing well-being. This is not an easy calculus.
Yeah, war is. I think, like you said, war can be righteous. I don't think war is ever good.
Yeah, I agree.
Like, and that's in spite of the fact that it seems to be very empowering to like our economy, especially in the United States. I guess probably because we have so much military, production that happens.
Yeah.
So it really seems to boost our economy a lot of times. But no, it's never good. I mean, and like you said, like if I had to kill somebody, that might be righteous. Like if I had to kill somebody
In
to
self-defense.
save one of my
Yeah.
children.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would, but it still would not be good.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's important to be able to distinguish between those two columns, and for the reasons I read, from a cognitive science perspective, there's a reason why we feel about those concepts differently, of righteousness and goodness.
Oh, it was me that dropped out then. Okay.
Yeah, it was.
I carried on as if like everybody else had dropped out, just trying to fill in.
Yeah, welcome back. Welcome back.
Anyway, the reason I use that example, of course, is it's a clear-cut example where demoralization of the other side is saving American lives. So I think there's maybe some justification for saying, threatening at least to dehumanize the other side.
Yeah, I guess
Certainly
I
in that-
think there's a difference between dehumanization and demoralization. I think dehumanization is a much larger category, and I think I would have to make an assessment based on what demoralizing acts are being used.
Yeah, I mean, again, to put the other side forward, of course, a lot of countries on the Allied side had already signed the Geneva Convention, which, of course, is supposed to regulate that dehumanization process or demonization process going on. To say that even though these are, life or death situations, you still shouldn't, take life unless it's absolutely necessary.
Yeah.
I look at I watched a couple. There's been a lot of stuff come out since the Iraq War about the United States Army, or military, and they there's a lot of incidences that are being investigated or have been investigated or whatever, that where soldiers went into homes in Iraq, like whole villages, and because maybe they thought that somebody had set an IUD from that village, they went in and massacred the entire village, and it's very. I mean, it's very just stressing to read these reports and stuff about that kind of thing. And I think that maybe the soldiers, the individual soldiers, that might have been easier for them, but I feel like that a commander person should have been better equipped to deal with those feelings of that, and how to handle it, and how to maybe not allow that kind of thing to happen, because I think it seems like from what I've learned that there were a lot of non-combatant innocent people that were massacred out of retaliatory reasons.
Everybody's gone. Just you and me then, Robin. Okay. Yeah, no, I think there were some very serious cases. I remember one, can't remember which first or second, but there was one case where a group of soldiers rolled up on a house, rounded everybody up inside, the whole family, dragged them outside, and it just so happened that a helicopter crew or something was filming it at the time, or flying over, and they filmed it as the American troops basically just lined them up against the wall, so to speak, and did the whatevers. And I think that helicopter pilot reported them. Action was taken, although I never found out the actual result. But I think you get rogue situations going on, and there's certainly certainly instances of that in the Second World War, where, as I say, I think there was an open policy on just shooting Nazis.
Yeah.
The SS, who were known to be particularly brutal with slaves and or captives, it was justified from that point of view of look what these people have done. This is the group in the German army which has a lot of power, and they tend not to take prisoners.
Yeah, and that kind of attitude bleeds over into just regular society too. Like in the United States right now, we have a lot of people who have been okay with Renee Good and Alex Preddy, like they were accused of being domestic terrorists, and even if they were, even if there was some sort of evidence of them like hindering ICE, did they deserve to die for that? I mean, we Alex Purdy was shot right in the back of the head. They took his gun out of his back pocket or his holster and shot him right in the back of the head. And and then we watched there's been a lot of people that were killed that died in ICE custody. And then what really bothered me was the building of Alligator Alcatraz, and we had people that were down there getting their pictures filmed with the sign, because there was a sign that went into the road there that said Alligator Alcatraz. And so, like, people were celebrating that these immigrants were going to get eaten by alligators. They thought, like, they were down there getting their picture made with the sign, like it was some kind of like Disney World or something. It was really troubling, and so it seemed like that mentality of dehumanization is going through my society here too, like really bad, by
Yeah,
people who are
100%.
by
Did you
people who
guys
claim
did you
to
guys
be
hear of the
Christians. A lot
case?
of them, huh?
Did you guys hear of the case where this comedian, he made a website with a fake contact for ICE, and so you could call a number if you want to report someone to ICE, and this kindergarten lady teacher called this number, and she said, I have the student and his parents. I think that ICE needs to check on them. And he was like, okay, so what you're saying is you have a student. How old is the student? And she's like, oh, he's like 5. All right, so 5 years old. Okay, and just to get you like on record, are you saying that we should potentially like deport his parents? And she was like, oh, you're making me sound like such a horrible person. And he was like, no, 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 I'm just recording what you're saying. And it's like it didn't click with her that what she was doing was any kind of evil.
Yeah,
She was basically thinking that she was doing her moral duty and not connecting the humanity, like the what, like how she was gonna ruin lives potentially.
yeah. It's been. I mean, it's been hard. Which, I mean, I'm sure that every country has it with immigrations up in so many places, but it's been really hard with not just watching what ICE is doing and watching um, that, but to see the people, like the regular citizens who are celebrating you know this kind of behavior, and they don't see any issue with it. Like, even though our Constitution supposedly, like, provides those people with some sort of rights,
Due
like,
process.
and it, like, I can't. Even my own parents, I've had this trouble with them because they are so indoctrinated into this MAGA right wing, just universe, that they don't seem to have empathy for other humans anymore, and it's really concerning because and these are the people that are, everybody is God's child or children of God, and everybody matters, and I'm pro life, and it just seems like that, no, just certain people fit that description, and then the rest of them don't fit into that category. And
You guys think that president should be like any president should be at the end of their term like face some kind of accountability for like either any kind of like war crimes committed under their term of presidency or like a violation of human rights? Do you think that we should, because the system we have right now is basically, the president is untouchable, and do you guys think that it should be changed?
Well, I mean, yeah, the president is untouchable because our Supreme Court ruled that um, he cannot be, charged with a crime for anything he done while he was performing his duties as president. So, like the Supreme Court, pretty much. I mean, like our Supreme Court agreed that the president of the United States could actually execute his political opponents, and that would be within his legal rights, which is a really weird um, interpretation of the presidential power, I think. But that's because we have a really corrupt Supreme Court who is like, this is that the president like put three of them on the bench, so they're as corrupt as he is, just pretty much. But yeah, it's been
How would that
hard.
work though? If you triumph afterwards, like, aren't you saying he should have been impeached
I think he should have
and
been
like the whole
impeached.
process jacked
Like
up?
I think we have to be real careful on like trying the president or whatever, because I think that there are certain things that the president has to make decisions on that maybe the public isn't aware of, like all of the details. And for national security, they cannot discuss all that, and they cannot and because of our population is so conspiratorial, um, sometimes it's hard to decide whether they should know certain things or they shouldn't know certain things, or how much should they know, because they don't seem to have a good sense about what is real and what isn't, sometimes. So I don't know, but like I think Obama probably committed war crimes.
Yeah, this is actually why I'm saying that maybe later, because of course in the time of the presidency there might be some top secret stuff that we don't know about, and we shouldn't know about it, not because we are conspiratorial people, but because if we know about it, then the enemy would know about it too. But
I would
after,
say most U.S. presidents have probably committed some
yeah,
type of war crime, but like Trump's or like the double tap on the shootings on the boat, the boat situation with the people they claim were drug dealers. Um, I think Hegseth, probably the head of the DOD, or Department of War, as they've changed it to. I think he should be charged with war crimes for that. Yes, for ordering that double tap of the survivors in the boat. I would be, I mean, and I would be just as happy to say that if it was a Democrat that was doing it too. So I think we have to have rules, and if we don't want to follow the rules, I don't know why we even have them, but they're there for a reason. Yes, Jeet, speaking your mind is traitorous. Oh, what happened?
but it's very important to speak your mind, because otherwise, you will have a echo chamber where everyone is agreeing, and that's not fun either.
It's really weird watching people like the idea of due process. Like me and my daughter had to explain due process to my mother. My mother's 80 years old, and she didn't understand due process. So she was like, she asked my daughter. She said, do these people when we deport them or whatever? And Tara was like, but you have to let them go to a hearing, like to find out, how do you know if they are supposed to be deported, if there's somebody who should be deported, if you don't even have a hearing over it. And so and so then mom was like, well, do they have the right to due process? And we were like, yes. Like if they're on American soil, they don't have to be American citizens. Like we would not know who is an American citizen if we don't have the due process. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't carry my citizenship papers. I might have my driver's license on me, but I don't carry my birth certificate and stuff with me around. If I was to get arrested out somewhere, which I probably won't be mistaken for some sort of immigrant, but like I'm not carrying those papers with me. So what, they could have me deported and everything before I could ever even get to my papers. It just seems like that my a lot of my nation has just like, I don't know if they never understood why we have those specific like parts in the Constitution and stuff like that, why they existed to begin with. Maybe they just never did learn that part of it, but it seems like a real failure on our education system to have not explained why we need due process to people. And
You know,
Yeah,
probably cut off that sentence there. It's the failure of our education system that kind of covers like 99% of our problems.
yeah, but I don't know how you like. I'm not sure where to like see, because we have like teachers who are like my daughter's a teacher, and she like puts in long hours and for very little return, um, because she cares about kids. So I think that our education system is full of teachers like that, though. I think that politicians have intentionally, you know, um, like underfunded our schools and to try to so they could get rid of the public school system, pretty much. So
and I think that because, for example, like same thing with the explanation on tariffs, right? Like people could look up what tariffs mean, and you will know that it basically means that the country that is importing paying the tariffs, and so there was constant refusal by uh, the conservatives and the MAGA to accept the terminology very similarly to how they don't accept the due process, even though it's written black on white, and it has to do more with tribal mentality than so in their problem is like fundamental philosophy, because they are susceptible to just following the cult uh, leader, as opposed to actually learning on themselves. Because, for example, I didn't know what tariffs actually meant. I had to look it up. But once I did, it's very clear, and that same information was available to everyone. And for some reason, they refuse to accept it, and they see it according to not how it's written black on white, but according to what the cult leader says.
yeah, well, like in American history, we learn about tariffs, or we should. I did. Maybe I was the only person paying attention in American history class, but because in the 1920s, leading up to the Great Depression and everything, tariffs were like one of the main contributing factors to. Um, that was the only way that we raised taxes. That was prior to us having income tax, and so yeah, that was. And Jeet, if you want to speak here, you can unmute and talk anytime you want to. That's
Oh no, I appreciate it. We're covering like way too much territory for me to speak at the moment. I'd need to
well,
find some meat to dig into personally.
our ringleader left, and I'm not sure why he abandoned this, but we were talking about like the difference between righteousness and like good, and like war and stuff is what we got onto this right here, because Travis is going over his moral,
Yeah,
quest.
I would end up derailing this entire conversation as an amoralist personally, but yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Not necessarily. It might be an interesting contrast.
A moralist.
I'm here if anybody's got questions.
I want to hear about your morals.
Well, maybe you could start by just laying out your position before we ask anything. Give us something to work with.
I mean, I wouldn't know how to frame it. There's a lot to talk about. I think personally, if I had to sum it up quickly, morality is a thing that emerged a long time ago, just past, say, our vast evolutionary periods where things like looking at higher status individuals or coming to low resolution conclusions is where morality works well. In today's society where we have a lot of interconnectivity and vast amounts of people that are easily influenced by single solitary groups or single people, and I'm talking in magnitudes of like thousands to millions of people of influence, like those old systems of what is right and wrong to do in a society are way like outdated. We need to be looking at the details and the nuances and not making quick, snap, low resolution moral judgments on people. But
I think we pretty much all agree with that, though.
Yeah, that's kind of the, well, I mean, in that instance, I don't agree with morality, period. Like, until morality comes more in control, you know what I mean? I'm on the side of, like, people coming together on the right things and the wrong things to do for society and such, but I don't know if I'd necessarily call those moral things, and I'd definitely not take the leap to say those are virtuous things, personally, or things we could guide ethics with. But that's just me, so...
I don't know. I get the feeling that you're probably in the same camp as me. I was just going on a ride with Wavy about this, and I think the conclusion is like I'm just using different words to describe the same thing.
Yeah, I guess I'm a little confused because you said, like, I don't know if I agree with morality. Like, are you saying that we don't actually have the morality, or that the morality that we have currently is, like, insufficient, or...
Well, I mean, obviously to me, obviously, there's no objective morality.
Yeah.
Right? There's like, if I said, somebody asked me this question the other day, they said, is having sex with a dead human being, one human having sex with a dead human being, another dead human being, is that immoral? And I think no. I don't think there's anything moral or immoral about it. It's an atypical behavior. It's a behavior that I think most humans don't do, and I think if we looked at the best reasons for it, it would be like the things that they've experienced in their life that brought them to their actions in the moment. There's nothing moral or immoral about it, personally.
Do you believe in human nature? Do you believe
it's a violation of, like, I think even in the United States, we recognize that a corpse has some sort of bodily autonomy. You cannot like take or harvest organs from them without prior permission and stuff. So I see that as immoral, because I unless that person gave you consent before they passed or something like that. So yeah,
I'm a big believer in consent. Yeah, I'm a big believer in consent, but consent for me comes from different places than morality.
G, do you believe in human nature?
What a strange question. Imagine someone said no.
I'd say we have a lot of natures.
Nivik, that's a difficult question to break down. There's a lot there, and I'd say it's as large as the topic as, say, for instance, whether morality is justified or not. Larger, maybe, to be fair.
Based on how we are, based on our makeup is how we act. So you said you don't believe in objective morality, but we have we based on our makeup, we act a certain way.
Objective probably here is referring to like something discoverable or like existing outside of humans, like a god, right?
Yeah, I mean, stance independent.
Yeah.
I don't believe anything stance independent to be moral or immoral. So therefore, there's no like objective foundations for a
Right.
truly immoral or immoral behavior. I agree. We have agreements.
I think that's
Just
more of an
asking because
anti.
if you think people
That's
supposed
more.
to, you think
That's
people
more.
act in a certain way they want to act because they just make up their morals, or you think like humans just have a certain type of nature about them where they would care for others.
I mean, yeah, I think morals are just like the cereal aisle in the grocery store, just like religion and any other belief beyond evidence is like there's nothing really founding it besides your own subjective choices in the moment.
Not even
That's a
facts
moral.
about humans.
I think that's a moral anti-realist position more than an amoralist position.
Yeah, you'd be accurate with me. I'm pretty much anti-realist across the board.
Yeah. So you still might believe in subjectivity then, right? Moral subjectivity.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. We all have our own interpretations and for why, for what reasons, and yada yada. But yeah, sure.
Go ahead, ask you a question, physician. Just wanted to clear that up because before we go down the this guy's into immorality, which is
it's
not the
open
case.
season on the physician anytime.
Well, what was your question going to be though? Before I interrupted.
My question, I think I was going to ask, like, therefore, do you think it's possible to get morality wrong?
Who?
You're asking G.
You.
I guess, yeah, or whoever wants to answer it.
If I don't believe, yeah, I mean, my own personal answer would be, mean yes and no. If you believe in morality and morality is something that guides you, you could probably come to a conclusion that something is right or wrong. For me, I don't believe in morality as a. I believe it exists. I believe people use it. I believe it's a common human thing today. But other than that, like, I don't think there's, again, anything objective about it. So my answer to that question would be no initially until you start to establish what morality is and means and such. So anybody else want to?
Well, based on my moral system, yes, some morality is wrong. Like I mean, like if I lens that through my moral system, there are wrong ways to do morality. But that's that's based on my system. And so, I mean, I realize that is subjective to me, but still, if I'm asked to judge the morality of someone else, then yes, I can use my system and say, yeah, that's wrong.
What about getting it wrong because you got some fundamental facts wrong? Would that count?
I feel like the morality probably has a lot to do with researching, like topics. Like, I feel like that I don't have, I try not to have real strong moral positions on certain topics until I kind of learn, like abortion is one of them that I feel like that a lot of people have a really strong moral position on, that they are definitely not aware of much of the information, and they just think that they've come down on this correct side about things. So that's one where I think that I see that as like a problem because they don't bother to research that topic and learn about it enough to see where what the flaws in their position. The death penalty is another one that I think that is like people don't really go into studying all about the death penalty and how many people we've probably executed that were innocent. And I don't know, it seems to me like when people avoid information about things, they seem to have a lot of contradictory positions. Like the pro-life, I put quotations around it, movement is highly supportive, usually, of the death penalty. And a lot of them seem to be real averse to feeding young children and mothers and giving them health care and stuff. So I think that when you spend zero time thinking about your moral position, you just you latch onto this position, and you just see it as righteous, and you don't ever look to any other position to see why anybody else holds any other position. Then you just hold it for dogmatic reasons that you don't really you probably couldn't even explain. That's
So you
a lot of
feel
times.
rather than think.
Yeah, when you ask a lot, yeah, feeling. That's right, leading with feelings. When you ask a lot of people why this is wrong, I think that really makes it hard. Like, and it makes it hard for me sometimes. And I understand how, I understand a lot more about this. But like, if somebody says, "Why is this wrong?" Sometimes it's hard to explain why you think it's wrong, other than I just feel like it's wrong.
Well, I think you just explained it right there. That may be the only reason is that you feel that it's wrong and that there's nothing more to it.
Yeah, and you should have better.
Why would you feel it's wrong?
You should have. Well, I mean, like just like ick factor, or just because the culture you grew up in, or your religious beliefs, or just any kind of you could have any kind of thing that makes you feel that way. And but the thing about it is like you know if you try to make yourself begin to go through each moral position, because that's what I did with the death penalty. Like I had to go through that because I used to be supportive of the death penalty, and actually a black minister is who convinced me to change my mind. Who talked to me about it? He's here in Kentucky. He's the one that he's like at all of our penitentiaries. He's constantly fighting and doing like petitions to stop executions and stuff like that. And I met up with him one time, and he's the one that convinced me to change my mind. And so I do listen to Christians every now and then. See?
I mean, the going back to feeling rather than thinking. I mean, this is all just what emotivism is all about, right? Where it's like, it may be that that's just what people are doing without realizing that something happens, they feel something about it, and then they're struggling to find reasons to explain why they feel like this, rather than just saying, "Well, I don't know, this just feels a certain way." Something biology. However, if you want to have discussions about social policies, you may have to do better than just how you feel. Because what do you do when someone feels something else?
Exactly. Like I said, I grew up. I didn't grow up with philosophy at all, and since I've started, participating in groups that do philosophy, I've had to learn to try to explain why a lot of things are. You know what I mean? Like, and that's really hard. Why is this wrong? Why is this wrong? Why is and I'll tell you something interesting the other night that I had this conversation with, and some people didn't think I was very accurate with this, but we were talking about like pedophilia, and the more I've thought about it, I mean, I think by our society it's wrong. I think that it's harmful to our human, the well being of the children and stuff. But I think that it's more natural in our species than what we care to admit. Because if you look at every other animal species on the planet, um, that is not a concern, including our closest, relatives, the bonobos, like. So I feel like that is something that we as a society have uh, went beyond our genetic and our ancestral ways to change. And I think that may be why we sometimes find that we have a problem with those people that are they appear. I don't think it's necessarily something that isn't in our genetic sort of past. So I think that like dehumanizing those people and wanting to, like I've seen people who would execute them, and I can't agree with that at all. And I'm a victim of that as a child. So like I think I have a pretty much an experience that I can say that if I can reason out that to a point to where I don't think they should be. I think they should be treated humanely, and I think they should be treated for maybe to help them get past that and stuff. So it took me a long time to get there, though. I will admit that. Anybody else want to say
People
something?
think everybody here think like everyone has moral autonomy. Like there's not like a inherent human component there, in nature wise.
I don't know what inherit. I prioritize humans because I'm a human. I think. I don't necessarily think though that we have inherent value. Like my children have I think my children have inherent value because they're my children. I gave birth to them. I carried them for 9 months. I stayed up with them at night when they were sick. I went to school plays and teacher things and all that kind of stuff. So they have inherent value to me, but like universally, I don't think that we matter at all. Actually, that's not to be nihilistic, but I just don't think I don't think that if an asteroid hit this planet tomorrow and wiped us all out, I don't think the universe would care.
Oh no, I know. I'm separating the universe.
Yeah.
I know. Like with the universe, no. But I mean,
and I don't believe in God, so I don't believe that humans have any inherent values for as like a creator or anything like that either. So
why does nihilism catch a lot of shit?
I'm not a. I mean, I'm a nihilist, I guess. Somewhat. Just because to me, nihilism is just me admitting that right there. That we're not here for a reason. We're not here for a purpose. We're not here for. And nobody would care if this planet, was to get struck by an asteroid and wipe all the life of it. There's nobody out there that would care. But that I don't sit around and like dwell in that about like, oh, this life is meaningless and all that kind of stuff. I separate those two things. I don't know if that's a different kind of nihilism, but I think it's reality nihilism, maybe.
I don't know. I feel like nihilism is broadly correct. It's just that somehow there must be different kinds of it, where like there is the version where you just get depressed about everything. Because I mean, saying, yeah, we don't matter. Yeah, of course we don't matter. The only things that matter are those that matter to agents to whom things can matter.
Facts.
I don't think there's anything beyond that. So like, okay, we don't matter. Who cares? We care. That's all we need.
Yeah,
that's good enough.
I mean, I think we do. Yeah, I think like the only value that I put on humans is because I'm a human or because I'm well, and I value other animals though too.
Well, other animals aren't really separate from us, right? We like all share an ecosystem.
Yeah. So yeah,
so you can't be like just focusing on just us alone. We all evolve together.
Maybe because I'm a sentient being, I prioritize sentient beings. Then how about that, or something like that?
I'd say it's because you can form meaningful connections with these beings. Like, I don't think it matters if you were human. Like, if there was a race of like cat people, but that spoke perfect English, that we would probably just treat them like a different nationality.
I would probably be, I'd probably be their slave, like I am my cats already. Jeet said he's a pragmatic nihilist. Okay, Jeet, like unmute. Can you unmute? And is that what I am? Does that sound like what I am?
I don't know. I mean, the way I describe it is like there is just like the physician said, there is no inherent meaning. There is no inherent purpose. even at some levels, we don't know an inherent reality.
We are inherent, right?
So
We're designed a certain way.
the pragmatism in me is like, all that's true. And when you look at the definition of nihilism, it's just accepting the fact there are no fundamentals in those notions. Now, again, like the physician said, you can take it to the next step, and this is the most like pop culture thing that people think of when they speak about nihilism. Oh my God, nothing matters. You might as well go kill yourself. Everybody, I'll just go rob people, and who gives a fuck? 'Cause, yeah, that's just not how it is. Like, though I accept there are no fundamentals there, I'm still a person with emotions, and I experience life just like everybody else does. Just I accept the fact that there are no fundamentals, and I think people live in a lot of delusion in that sense, and that's part where my feelings on morality come in. Is that's part of the delusion that there's some fundamental base morality that everybody agrees in. And no, not really. No, sorry.
So you think nihilism has gotten a bad rap?
Oh yeah, it's just like communism. I mean, come on. People do this over history. Everything gets a bad rap for a time. And then when we start to look at it, we're like, oh, yeah, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Communists might deserve it because it's probably a shitty idea.
Well, I think that religious people like really seem to like be averse to that topic. Like they'll say, "Oh, you're just a nihilist," and they use it in And it took me a long time. I used to see it as a negative thing, and then I started like looking into what the word means and stuff, and I was like, I think I am one of those. Actually, I don't know. So I don't know that necessarily that's a bad thing. No,
Yeah.
I think it's just kind of.
I don't think any one philosophy sums me up, but I'm willing to accept the fact that nihilism seems pretty true. As long as we don't look at the worst ends of nihilism, where again, nothing matters. Why do anything anyway? That's just like, to me, that's an excuse almost for the people who are on the religious side or just before, that just don't want to accept that there aren't really fun. These are also sometimes people that are atheists. They're like people like that. They're sure God doesn't exist, but they're not absolutely sure that there's not some fundamental meaning or drive or free will. Or well, there's a whole nother topic. I'm not a free willer either.
Me neither.
But where were you yesterday? Oh man,
it'd be hard to be a nihilist.
You guys sound like a free willers. You act like you don't act a certain way because you're human. Like you have like some type of choice in how you act, and we were designed.
No, I just act. I don't really have a choice. I mean, it depends on
There's
how
a
you
design
define choice,
to have
right? Yeah.
for survival. We
I
wouldn't.
was designed. I wasn't designed.
Yeah, I don't mean as in from a being. You don't have to come from a being to be designed. That's not where I'm coming from. You know that with me.
Well, I mean, I'm real careful, like, because I speak to so many religious people all the time. I'm real careful about that kind of language because it's good weaponizing language that they can, like, you're giving them like some kind of cookie.
Yeah, design has implications of some sort of intention behind it. Like something intentionally designed. So that there's definitely questions of terminology there.
I get what you're saying, but you just designed through the potential. Is where I'm coming from, not from a being because of potential.
Sure. I mean, if you want to consider design just things that occur through whatever natural progressions we can trace, sure.
Maybe we're kind of extending that word a little bit too far. But then everything is designed.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I agree.
Everything is designed.
Watchmaker. That's the watchmaker.
The whole free will thing, I think, is a bit of a red herring. Really, what we should be doing is, how about we just explain how human behavior occurs, and then boom. Does that mean we have free will? You tell me.
That's what I'm trying to do, is to explain how it occurs.
You think we have free will?
No.
There's that bait question again.
There's a mix. I think it's
free willy, maybe. About free will.
Like.
Well, how about this? Humans make decisions based on things they see, things they know, things they feel, etc.
Yeah.
Call it whatever you want.
Yeah, no decision is free from like certain things, like
What happened before it? Yes, exactly.
Yeah, contributing causes or factors or whatever. But I guess we're back out. We've done straight off of the topic of, but I don't know where to go with.
I have this tendency to drag topics off base, so
No, it
I'm
wasn't
sorry.
you. It wasn't you. Travis just left us and kind of left us just like, and not like
You think morality is separate from free will?
I think that our moral systems suffer from the idea of free will, because I think that we treat people as if they necessarily have free will, and
the libertarian kind, perhaps.
That's how we're talking. We're talking about like my morality this and my morality that, as if they choose their morality.
I did choose mine. I think I did choose mine. I think I sat down and made a conscious choice of what do I think is the best moral system to adhere to, because I think we can make decisions and choices. I don't think we are. I think that we have cognitive abilities, and I have sort of my own little theory thing, but some people kind of reject it, and some people find it interesting. But I've been thinking for years that once we okay, like I see a lot of what we call free, like free will is something like that, maybe not necessarily there when we are like living as like our instinctual person. So like, if I'm behaving in a way that my instincts guide me to behave, then I'm probably lacking in free will. I'm just like behaving on genetics or past experiences. But when we come up with like specific things like the scientific method, and so we learn things that are not intuitive to us naturally, that we develop and begin to strive towards, that go against our human nature, as you say, Wago Nivik, that we are creating somewhat of free will. And so I'd be interested to see what any of y'all think about that. I don't know if you need me to explain it better or whatever, but I see that as us making a place for free will.
Why are we trying to preserve the word free will then? It sounds like that's what's all out of it's about. It's like, can we make that word still mean something? We could just get rid of it.
Robert Sapolsky has a great thing that he says that I love. He's like, if free will fits within determinism, I'm okay with it, no problem. So in other words, what that means is if your definition of free will can be defined by the physical laws and the things we're constrained by, no problem, call that free will. But if it jumps into the realm of like, now we have some magical control beyond everything that happened just prior to the moment to make things possible to happen to begin with, then yeah, that's called the God of the gaps, and that's where there's a difference there, So
yeah, well, that's what I mean. Like I think that okay, like say like I'm doing things, and before the scientific method or whatever, and critical thinking or whatever come along, we were doing things that just was in our nature, sort of, or whatever. We were doing things that were instinctual based on our past experiences. Okay, and I'm trying to think of a good example, and I'm kind of stuck right now. But like something that we've learned, about through something like scientific method, and so we learned that what we once thought, or what an action that I would have taken prior to knowing, certain details about it, that is very unintuitive towards me, but I know better because of our ability to test things and stuff. That's like, so we're able to actually move away from our genetic predispositions or our like that right there. Does that make sense? I've never sit down and wrote this out, and I need to one of these days.
So here's a fun one to anyone who. So if you wanted to settle this, you would do this. Ask someone who doesn't think we have free will the following: what would it take for me to have free will, or what would a creature have to be able to do to have free will? And I guess to someone who does think we have it, I guess it's like, how would you compare it to a creature that doesn't have it? Any takers?
It's impossible. You can't have free will. You can have like you have some freedom because you're part of what makes you do what you do, but only to a degree. Only to a degree. You can't like have complete free will.
But I mean, I'm not even compatibilist either. Like I don't.
You don't think
agree.
you can affect the environment like the environment affects you?
I think that I'm not a compatibilist. Like
No, ask you a question.
I thought. Well, I mean, I don't know what you mean. I can affect the environment, yeah, but that's not free. I mean, that's not necessarily free will. They
Well,
like
compatibilism is you and the environment. The compatibilism is you and the environment.
I follow
You're not
Robert.
separating yourself.
I follow Robert Sapolsky's like ideal of yes, I can make choices, I can make decisions, but none of those decisions will ever be freely made, without being influenced by my prior experiences, my genetics, that type of thing, my environment. So
yeah, matter affects you, but you're made of matter too. So you're part of the effect. You're not completely separate.
I feel like there's a bit of a disconnect here, where like we're not really arguing.
Yeah, I made the sugar and spice and everything nice, just so you know.
The matter have an effect on you, but you're also composed of matter as well. So you also affect the environment as well. But no, so there's compatibilism is just including yourself in the mix is all.
I don't know. I don't subscribe to compatibilism because that's not what compatibilism is. I don't think.
What do you think it is then? Because I think you are. I think we all are. Just without realizing it.
I'm not a compatibilist at all. I don't. No.
So what problem do you have with it?
Jeet says he's not either. Because we, are you? Didn't you say you follow Robert Sapolsky?
I mean, I've heard a lot of what he says, but like the way I view compatibilism is that I don't think it's saying anything that interesting. It's just redefining free will into something that you can say we have and just calls it a day. And I guess that's fine, but like, what's the disagreement then?
I think that it's like compatibilism asserts that we live sort of in a determined universe, but that we have this amount of freedom to, like these free, and I don't believe we do. I like compatibilism. It has a specific definition. I can't spit it off, but like, I know that I've like watched and read a lot of stuff on this, and like I don't agree with the compatibilist view. I just don't think that we have near as much. We don't have near as like we have will. We have will. Like humans have will. We don't have free will, and I don't believe we have any amount of free will. I think every decision that we make, every choice we make, every action we take is influenced by prior causes or prior events or prior influences of some sort. I don't think there's anything that's free of any kind of causal,
Do compatibilists claim that?
Yeah, compatibilism like tries to say that there is free will. I mean, like they just it's not libertarian free will.
Yeah, but they're defining it differently, right? They're not talking. They're not disagreeing with you. They're just saying every compatibilist I've heard just says we're agents that make decisions. That's compatible with determinism. Done. That's why I think they're kind of cheating by kind of skirting around and just saying, yeah, we have free will. It's over there. But yeah, we have it. It's like they're trying to preserve the term, kind of like people try to preserve the term God by saying, well, I think God is love or something like that. You just don't want to admit you're an atheist.
No, compatibilism is the philosophical belief that free will and determinism are logically consistent with one another. Rather than assuming all actions are uncaused, compatibilists redefine free will as the ability to act according to one's own internal desires without external coercion or physical constraint.
No, they don't believe that there's no outside influence.
I look at it as the difference between like when you're making a conscious decision, when you're not kind of overwhelmed by any kind of fight or flight reflex, and you're kind of slowing down using more executive functioning.
It's just not separating yourself from having an effect is all. Like, yeah, the environment does affect what makes you do what you do, but you got to include yourself as well.
I think
you can't just say,
compatibilism at its most simple is just saying that there is a justifiable means of free will without saying it's free will. I mean, that there's, that's really all compatible. And it's a spectrum, right, of where you land on what is your level of compatibilism or not. Is it an illusion? So there's not really free will, but there's a feeling of free will. So therefore, I'm going to justify free will. It's not any one definable thing. And then there's the hard determinist, which means everything is calculable, period.
But are you sure that's in contradiction?
Compatibilism is not about free will.
Yes, it is.
It absolutely is. Yes, it absolutely is about.
You have
free
a
will.
percentage. You have some degree. It's not saying that it's not making an argument that the environment doesn't have no effect at all. It's just including yourself. That's all it is. It's including yourself.
I mean, classical compatibilism.
Yeah, I don't know
is
what
like
that means.
That's David Hume.
I explain it like a bunch of different ways. I don't know how many different ways I can explain it. And people say I don't know what I'm talking with, but saying that they don't know what I'm trying to say.
Okay, like compatibilists think that we should compatibilists I can't even say the word would say that we should execute people for their crimes.
What?
Or that we should
What?
Like
where did that come from?
Because we say that we should still hold people accountable for their actions, and like
Now that doesn't follow to jump to fucking killing people though.
Well, I mean, like that's one of the arguments, though, that like when I listen to Daniel Dennett and Robert Sapolsky like debate, that's what they came down to. A lot of their disagreement on was because Daniel Dennett was a compatibilist and Robert Sapolsky is a determinist. And
I remember that one. That one was fun.
And one of their big disagreements was how that affects our justice system. And how we treat people who have committed crimes, any kind of crime, actually, and do we punish people, or do we use that as sort of, like a way to rehabilitate people or something? And then there's some people that if they have mental illness and stuff that are just unsafe to be around others, they're unsafe for society. But does that mean that we should treat them as if they, were monsters?
No.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I haven't followed enough of like individual thinkers that put forward their particular views. I've tried to learn about the theories as a whole, but I don't like jumping to certain conclusions. Like you can have a compatibilist view, in my opinion, recognizing like we can hold people accountable without like jumping to some kind of like, yes, if somebody is incapable of being rehabilitated in a particular moment, you know, if they are currently enacting a crime and are likely to do that based on prior circumstances, you know, if we're determining based on that, if we think that they're a danger to society and need to be sequestered versus like, do they just need access to some kind of therapeutic system, whatever it might be, like we can recognize, and that's the whole compatibilist view, that it's not, you're not free of your prior circumstances. You are influenced by them, but you still make
Some degree, to some
potentially
degree.
the difference. It's a spectrum between having a conscious decision versus what you were influenced by to be unconscious of, and why you might make those decisions without slowing down to think, okay, is this best for me? Is this best for the people around me and society as a whole?
I'm still not sure we're even in disagreement, honestly. I think we're just throwing words at each other.
There's a bit. Some people see it as complete freedom, and it's not complete
Well,
freedom.
I guess as opposed to what? I mean, you have a certain set of preferences, and that's about it. I guess you would have to be able
Compatibilism don't
to
believe
change
you have
them.
complete freedom. It's like degrees of it. It is how it is, because you're also, you're also of matter and have causal outcome as well. You can't just exclude yourself from the mix.
Well, yeah, that's why I don't think determinism is even in conflict with free will. These are just different levels of description. Determinism operates at the fundamental level of reality, but when we're talking about society, we're talking about the level of agents with goals and values. And all holding accountable really means you're someone who is susceptible to incentives. We don't put a bear in court because it's not going to change its behavior. So, but a person, it might. If someone is insane, it's the same thing. You're in a state of mind where you are not susceptible to, changes to incentives to your behavior. So we have to like lock you up, because it'd be pointless to try to explain to you when you can't even control your own behavior. Just like with the bear. That's all it is.
So what do you mean about, so when you say people are in court, are you saying like the court views them of having complete free will? There's not like factors that they take into account that make
it
people
views them
have
as
to do what
people
they do?
who can be affected by the existence of punishment. We have punishment for crimes because most people will take that into consideration when making their decisions, whereas a bear will not, because it can't even comprehend this concept. So trying to hold a bear responsible for something is just pointless. But it's not with a person.
Okay,
I mean, they're still
like when I was talking
capable
about
of being influenced by incentives. That's just a different degree of it.
when I was
we
talking
know we know bears are different than humans.
when I was talking about pedophiles a while ago. Okay, like me as a determinist, that's why I think that we definitely should try to have compassion with these people. I don't know that they can. There's a whole lot that they can do about their feelings. They may be able to fight their feelings, but I don't think that there's anything that they can do about those feelings that come over on that. A compatibilist would say that yes, that person does make that choice to do that, and I disagree with that. I think that
most of them don't actually make that choice. It's not usually somebody that has those feelings towards children. They have that towards everybody, a level of entitlement and control. It's just that children are more easily taken advantage of.
Exactly. There's a level. There's a level of it. They don't believe in complete free will.
I tried to say this last night, that there's a distinguishment between having free will versus will.
yes,
like you can like this.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, but the thing about it is much of our society doesn't know the difference. And so when we talk about these things in certain ways, they assume that a person who has will is making these choices. like this is a choice, and like I think, and I
There's
think our
there's a lot
justice
that we
system.
don't have a choice over. I can't choose who I'm attracted to, right? But I can choose who I'm talking to, the types of relationships I'm getting into, whether or not like we are working together. I don't fucking know, like. But just because other people don't agree with that doesn't mean that we can't. Because that to me is a level of things that they've been influenced by their environment to believe in. But we can change that by educating people about how the environment influences us without um, also having a level of like how can we rehabilitate people, and that involves a level of like involving people into what choices they are making day to day and how they can be better around society and not be a danger to other people.
Yeah, I'm all for that. I just think that like our public is much of our public assumes that we have this libertarian free will. They think because they can decide they're going to have cereal instead of a donut for breakfast, that proves they have free will. That proves that everything that everybody does on this planet is a choice that they make, and uh, I think that's why I'm mostly worried about this because of the justice system. Because I think that it's what's you know led to our justice system that we have here in the United States, which is very unjust.
You know what's ironic to me? Um, a lot of Christians will point to the serenity prayer. God grant me the serenity to recognize the things that I can change. And what I can't remember the exact words, but it's one of my mom's favorite prayers. And I think that a lot of Christians might forget things like that. A lot of people, just in general, will try to control other people without like recognizing where those limits go, that you can influence the people around you, but you can't like force somebody to feel a certain way or force yourself out of certain emotions yourself. Like that kind of prevents processing and perpetuates a lot of trauma. But that is driven by a lot of the fight or flight, the types of experiences that you've had prior in life. So kind of introducing things in a way where it's safe for people to slow down. I mean, that's a whole process of therapy that a therapist will try to contain and make sure that you're not like jumping into that level and you're able to kind of calm down and think about things. How does this thing from my past influence how I'm feeling in the present and what I'm going to do in the future?
Yeah, I think everybody ought to take a little psychology class.
1000%.
Yeah, I'd say I would put psychology in a high school curriculum. That'd be dope.
I think I learned the psychology, but like I'm so old that they taught us crap about the ego and the id and stuff,
I
which
mean, God.
which I think was probably outdated thinking by the time that I was even in class. But I guess it was the history of psychology, maybe, or something. I don't know, but it didn't like it. It's I don't think it's anything that really matches on today's psychology, is it, Casey?
Uh, there's a lot of influence in it. I mean, depending on how it resonates for some people, like different modalities are going to work for others. I don't like the whole fucking, what is it, um, where you're like the inner child work. That I don't like that, but it works for some people out there. Jung works for a lot of people. There's definitely influence from Freud.
Yeah,
I can't
Tom
remember
is.
a lot of it right now.
Yeah, Thomas is like ooh Jungian, you
Yeah.
know.
I think
Can
that is
you
true.
Can you
I mean,
believe?
it wasn't until 1990s that we found out about brain plasticity.
Oh, well, maybe it wasn't so. Maybe I'm not too far out of it because I was already graduated by then. So
And it
maybe
takes
that's
time for current research to be caught up into
especially
the public. And I mean, this is the same for any type of course, like
especially
public
because
education.
like we're still taught that the Civil War was over states' rights, and yeah,
I mean, both things, states' rights to do what?
yeah. But our curriculum is slow to catch up with reality a lot.
Yes.
Also, as just for fun, why doesn't everybody throw out like one thing they would do to change the education system for the better?
Okay, you want to start?
Oh, sure, why not? I I would want it to be less dense, where I feel like too much of it was like kind of boring and a waste of time. Like imagine there's fewer subjects per day, but there's more focus on things like social activities and less homework. For fuck's sake, less homework. That felt like such a waste of time, given how little of it ends up mattering in your day to day. Like, let's make it a little bit more efficient. Okay, maybe there was several ideas.
I don't know. I feel like let's see. I feel like a lot of other countries though spend a lot more time in like school studies, and we're suffering because of that too. We're going to. That
I mean,
maybe education is a little more important than what we try to place on it. I don't.
Well, ask yourself, what do you want people to know when they leave? Like, what do you want them to be able to do? Does everybody need to know, like, ancient Roman history? Maybe not. Does everybody need to know this or that? I mean, it'd be nice if you were introduced a little bit to it, but it should be more for the purpose of probing your interest. Like, you shouldn't have to be able to, like, ace every class. If I'm awful at history, maybe it just means I'm not interested and I should be focusing on other things. I shouldn't be chasing grades.
I agree with that. I would like to see people like I would like to see, but I think history is very important. Like I think that history is probably like I don't see how like if you don't know where we've been, I don't know that I trust you to guide us where we're going, because it seems like that we make the same mistakes over and over and over as a species, and the fact that nobody has learned the history about it is the reason why. Like in American history, like people, I mean, like there's so much of American history that people should have to know. They should have to know all of, like, because um, we there's certain groups of people that we have oppressed the entire time they've been on our continent, and we've made, so I think that just knowing all the stuff that was done is important. It's real important, and I think that right now it seems like to me that we are suffering because of a lack of historical knowledge in this country, big time.
yeah, for me, it goes a
Does
lot.
everybody need to know all of it? Like you said that people who don't know history are going to make mistakes. So that's fine if you're going into something like politics. But for the average person, how much of this stuff matters to you? Like if I'm going to go be an engineer,
Okay, you vote. Do you vote?
well, let's say I vote.
If you vote, then yes, you should know. You should know it, because just because you're not the leader of the country, you're electing the leader of the country. Like the people who don't know history have elected Trump. That's how we got that right there. That's how we got
Yeah,
that.
there might be
They
other reasons for that, like the whole
It's a shared
Joe
common
Rogan
sense
is one.
thing.
But also, I think it's just a matter of low information voters voting on vibes and then trying to justify it post fact for reasons which are incomprehensible to me, rather than just washing their hands of this loser. They insist on defending him. I don't really know why. Maybe someone can
I mean,
explain
it
it.
is like, for me, it still like is just that level of psychology, which I was going to make a point that like you can introduce a lot of psychological concepts from very early ages. We're seeing a lot of positive studies coming out of like, teach kids about consent as early as preschool. Like if somebody doesn't want to give you a hug, you don't keep pushing them for it, kind of a thing. And you just keep going along with like what's appropriate for their current level of development. And that goes to like there's systems in, I forget which country it was, that they were addressing like school bullying, and they're taking a very holistic approach that you involve not just the kids, but you want the entire administration, all of the teachers, all of the parents being involved, being able to educate. If like a parent is modeling that behavior to the kids, we need to intervene on that. But it's that all of that comes together. And then on top of that, having teachers that are kind of attuned to how kids are responding. So if you're not learning history very well, I'd be wondering like, what is it that we can do to help kind of intervene, like maybe that particular topic, like I don't know, for me, it came a lot down to the types of teachers I had, the ones that got more involved and made it more entertaining for whether or not I was able to like retain that material.
Yes, I agree.
Component make school fun rather than a chore. Excellent suggestion.
It should be some fun, yeah, but I think that it is should be seen as as serious too. Like,
you want to have standards for sure, and it should be seen as something everybody wants to do. But like, so like, I when I went to school, it was in a different country, and the standards I can say were considerably higher, such that coming to school here, it was just piss easy to ace everything. So, like, if you ask me which approach was better, there were some serious problems with how some from Poland, how they did it, which it could almost be gamed to such a degree where, like, it was kind of silly. Whereas the American system, I think, is better at grading, but the standard for what you needed to know, unless you were doing honors work or something like that, it felt like I was like 3 grades back or something. So there's something to it where, like, if you are pushed harder early, maybe you'll be better off later by being used to like higher rigors and such. But does that require homework? Well, maybe some of it, sure. Oh yeah, what's this? Oh yeah, homework shouldn't be hated. So that's fair, but I think the reason I didn't like it is because it was just so boring, and it was for every class. So maybe it needs to be reworked to be something you are interested to do. I know, easier said than done. But that seems like the whole thing maybe just needs to be restructured, because we now live in a world of Chat GPT, and we kind of have to reckon with this. Like, you can't pretend like it doesn't exist. Like, if anybody can look up anything on their phone, just like you can now use a calculator on your phone, you don't learn long division anymore. Maybe you need to adapt your teaching now that it's very easy to pull up a formula to anything. So now, what do we learn? We learn how to use these tools. We learn what to ask them. Like, you still need to understand math to be able to use a calculator. You just don't need to know long division. Hope I'm not rambling too much with this little line, but I don't have a complete answer. That's why I guess I threw it out there for the public.
anybody else?
I'm not used to this being so quiet. Yesterday was wild in comparison.
I know.
It's because Travis isn't here. We would be bullying him otherwise if he was.
Also, earlier it's afternoon here, so I'm sure people aren't able to necessarily join in, but they can listen. I'm making a smoothie right now, so I'll be right back.
Travis is really good at hosting conversations, so he's had years of practice at it.
For now, we have to. Wait, how did we even get to this? I feel like what was the original topic? I think I forgot what this was originally about.
I don't know. I've veered off of that pretty bad, so I've never been very good at keeping up with topics. But we were talking about war and
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, I remember the whole righteous versus good. I had some issues with this because it feels to me like righteous just means ultimately the same thing as good. It's like good but with caveats.
see, I think, I mean, like, and good is a bad word too, but like, I understand the difference. Like, I think it's a big difference. And like I said, if somebody goes to break into my house and I shoot them in self-defense, I think that is righteous. You know, protecting like my family or whatever. Like if they're coming after my family, not if they're trying to steal something. No, not necessarily righteous. But like if they break in with intent to harm my children, I think that is righteous. That doesn't make it good.
So righteous just means something you think you should be able to do in society.
Like maybe justified, maybe a justified thing. You know, something that you have justification for. But that doesn't make it good. Like killing somebody I would say is never good.
Well, that's fine, but that sounds like kind of like a trivial statement. Like, yeah, there's casualties, that's kind of bad, but we had to do it. That feels like, yeah, duh. Maybe that's part of the exercise that maybe what Travis is doing, because I haven't been around for very long, so maybe his goal is to get everyone to fully understand and clearly communicate, etc. So I guess that's, and maybe I'm just not the right audience, because most of the things have been like, yeah, I kind of knew that already. And the only other disagreements were like we were just using different words. Like the ride I went with Wavy on a couple tens of minutes ago. So for something like if I was gonna like try to like deal with the whole free will thing, I would ask the following: what are the most important consequences of figuring this out? Like if you're trying to answer this question, what is your main concern? Is it responsibility in society? Is it something like how to treat criminals? That's great. So let's focus on that without necessarily invoking this term free will. If it turns, because I feel like free will is a term that's just outdated, related to mind-body dualism, when people didn't really understand like how the brain actually works. It's just you're evil just means you're doing things we don't like and we don't know why and we don't have a better explanation for it. So just go with that.
So you do recognize though that like hundreds of millions, billions of actually people on this planet actually believe that there is free will though. They believe that's a concept that they hold with they don't accept what you just said about the outdated mind body thing, whatever. They don't accept any of that.
That's fine, but that seems like the problem is that they have an outdated belief. Like if they're religious, well, that's a big problem. If your morality is related to God, the problem is there really, because
no, but like this is what that's what I mean though. We just can't wipe those beliefs away.
Well, no, but we can ask them to justify it in the sense of, are there measurable consequences to disobeying the will of God? Because if there are not, what does it matter what God wants?
But they think there is, though.
Well, let's see it. All we ask for is show us the consequences of disobeying the will of God. And if there are some, I want to know. But unfortunately,
I think that saying show me and then literally implementing that in society, that was a big difference. Because when I became an atheist, I thought, I'm going to tell everybody there's no God. You know what I mean? And you just, to them, you're just a raving lunatic running around saying there is no God.
Well, I don't I
They
don't
don't pay
actually
any
say
attention
that.
to it. Like, I know, but I'm just saying though, that's the way they see this. They think that what we are saying is completely foreign to their their ideal of life. So, like, you know, I mean, I deal with them all the time, and it's like demonstrate that. And there's, I mean, like, I don't know how many, if any, have ever even changed their mind at all about it, with just trying to point out the inconsistencies and of their thinking. But
Sure, but I'm gonna go back to look. If you want, so if we're gonna take an issue like, say, abortion, that I think is mired in religion to some degree, I would tell them, look, I get that you have this belief, but I hope you also understand that if you can't explain to me how this belief actually is tethered to reality, I can't really take it seriously because Joe down the street told me that Cthulhu told him we should kill all the babies.
we have
And
to
like,
take
what am I going to tell him that Cthulhu isn't real? Well, I'm going to ask him the same thing. Can you show some effect that Cthulhu is having on reality? Because if
yeah, but
not,
we
I'm
have
just going
to
to
take
dismiss it.
we have to take it
I don't
seriously though, because they have actually gotten the power into passing laws. So
I
there's no
don't know
way
if
to
it's
say,
like,
go
if
ahead.
we're gonna focus on a conversation around God. I mean, if it keeps coming back to that, I just prefer, like, there's so many ways to do it without talking about that. Like, I think there's a level of cognitive dissonance that it's like, obviously there are consequences for our actions, and we teach kids from a young age with various different methods. And we're trying to introduce, like, hey, there's actually consequences, or potentially a lot of negative consequences, if you're spanking them, versus like directing them to say, hey, we're gonna have this for dinner tonight and you can get this choice of whatever side, and like little interventions like that. But that's, I mean, most people are going to agree with you to at some level if you're looking for those like common grounds.
Well, my common ground would be we can see a world that we're living in, right? So I just want to see that your God actually matters beyond your own belief.
I do too, but I haven't been able to get people to follow along with that.
I think when it comes to like that point in a conversation, for me, like, there's research showing that holding a belief in the afterlife can be very positive for people. And I think, like, what degree you take that to for an atheist to say, well, I'm going to be okay because there's nothing there, versus somebody saying, I'm going to be okay because I will see my loved ones in heaven or whatever. Like, as long as there's no other type of jump into, well, you're going to go to hell because of this, like, I think that's introducing that can be negative. We've obviously got research that can be traumatizing to children. um, or yeah, anything else that's like based on some type of biblical text that is outdated and we can just use research around.
Well, they don't though. They don't research around it, and like I would say that religious belief, like right now in the United States, okay, um, we have a war going on, and people who are supporting this war actually because they came out and said it because they want to bring around the end times. They're fighting against climate change because I mean, that's like one of the main things that argues about climate change. Um, they
Which war is
yeah,
this?
Iran.
the Middle
Oh,
Eastern
Iran.
region.
Well, yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, Iran. Okay.
Israel and just all of that area.
Iran, yeah, Iran. Like it's like, but it like the whole area over there is seen as like the Holy Land, and we've got all three of the what I call the Abrahamic death cults over there, like battling around, um, and like I believe religious beliefs are causing, like, I understand, like, my mom, I'm sure her religious beliefs have given her a lot of personal comfort and stuff. But as far as like the general population, I think they're harmful. I think they are I think they are a net negative on society, not a net positive.
Religion as a whole, you mean?
Yes, I think religion is a net negative. Yes, there was a time, like I understand where religion came from, like why, and I think that there was a time when it was the opposite. I think it was at one time it was probably a net positive. I think it helped us build cohesive societies and like tribes and things like that around each other and stuff, and gave us some answers for some questions that we didn't have. But I think it's worn out its usefulness pretty much.
I mean, as long as it doesn't go beyond the personal level, I suppose it's fine. It's only when it crosses into the societal level then you start having problems when you're trying to pass policy based on religious arguments.
I haven't seen any. I haven't seen too many people that where it comes down to just personal beliefs. Like I feel like that every one of these, like, somehow it affects their thinking on something. Like I said, the climate, it affects like women having control over their own health care. It affects whether how we should discipline children. It affects you know vaccination. It affects like there's just so many um factors
Yes,
that.
it's a very like American phenomenon, and I don't think it's again I don't think that's the majority of the population. It just so happens that we are affected by
You know
allowing
about
this
the
minority
anti-vax?
vote to have the most influence.
Was this
Well, I
about
mean,
the anti-vax? The last comment that it's a minority.
well, all of it, like in terms of like if somebody wants to have their religion influencing the government, I mean, a lot of religious people will say no, there should be a separation between church and state. Like that was the founding fathers of how many of them were religious, but they understood the effects that that has on a government.
But actually, very few of them were actually, they were deists. Most of them,
Well, that's
they were,
religious.
well, not really. Like they don't believe, like they don't, like most of our founding fathers did not believe in a God that intervened in human like doings. They just believed in like a you know they believed in a creator maybe because they didn't know about evolution yet, but they believed in sort of a God that sort of like made this world and then just kind of left us alone.
Yeah, but that kind of belief is kind of harmless because it again doesn't impact society. So
Yeah, but
really,
most religions are not deist. I mean, like Islam is not a deist religion. Christianity is not a deist religion. Um, you know,
Yeah, what's the level of like beliefs? I want to say I had heard a while back that even as far as like some of the core ideas to um yeah, in terms of like the number of Christians that believe in evolution versus
yeah.
creationism or other
Well,
aspects of that.
they will give you a number of 70%, I think, on Wikipedia or whatever. But when you boil down those statistics and break them down, that amounts to very a whole lot fewer people who accept that we have a common ancestor as humans with other animals. They just accept some type of some part of evolution. They like a lot of them will accept what they call micro evolution, and and not macro, which is not really actually a technically even a separation that evolutionary biology makes, but they've separated. So what it amounts to is speciation. They don't accept speciation.
And we've hit a
I'm
dead
trying to
end.
find like you were trying to tell me that there's 10 to 40% of individual Christians fully support unguided macroevolution, but that's to me that's not answering the question of whether they do believe in macro.
People should more discuss the pragmatic part and why people believe things the way they do, more like from a social science way of looking at it, than just, you just tell them that makes no sense and why don't they just come around conversation.
That doesn't work. That doesn't work. Tell them if they don't make these. I don't know. I just value like I think that.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, it doesn't work.
I think true things is what I like. So that's my value. Like, and so I have trouble with people who persist on because I don't think like I feel like there's a limit to how much believing untrue things can benefit you.
What's the contention right now between the two of you?
I was saying that we should more discuss the drive that's likely there that led people to believe the things that they do.
I mean,
in like a cause and effect, like social science aspect, instead of just saying, well, this person to this person, well, that makes no sense, that there's no God and you can't point to him, and being bogged down in that back and forth.
So that's fine. However, so like for the purposes of convincing people, yeah, you're going to have to engage them on their level and understand that really it's just a matter of psychology. But if we're going to be making arguments for social policy, yeah, and the environment, well, same thing. But if we're going to be making arguments for social policy, like we're going to have to appeal to something we can both see, right? And you telling me that, well, God wants us to do this, I'm going to say, well, that's very interesting, but I would like to know, because this would be like a truly extraordinary discovery. Because if it isn't the case, then surely we shouldn't follow this advice. And I would hope that the person I'm talking to is at least sensible enough to realize that not everyone shares their view.
When people are desperate to survive, they get very tribal, and they'll say whatever to survive. Say God says that my family should only go on the lifeboat, and people who I know, should go on the lifeboat. That in on the ship that's sinking. They're not going to, which it would make sense when you think of it that way. They're just people just being practical. They want to survive.
Well, sure, but right now, like, we're not really threatened with survival necessarily. And if we're just discussing social policy, we're just talking about things, right? And I'm just asking that person to be able to step outside of and engage on the kind of level that would be necessary to actually have a chance of being convincing, rather than just, wow, I believe this, therefore we do this. That's never going to convince anyone else. They wouldn't expect to be convinced by that, so they shouldn't expect me to be convinced by that. And so hopefully they'll try a different method.
I agree with that falsifiability type thing. What would convince you of believing otherwise? The issue with that is that we can't choose our beliefs. So we actually don't know if the thing that we're saying would convince me otherwise would actually convince you otherwise. You're not in control of that as far as I can see. but I think that it's still a useful way to go about discussing things, especially when there's impasse. I think that gets the ball rolling in the proper direction in a dialectic. Real quick, before you either respond to that or respond to Niv, I want to take this opportunity to complain. I had to take someone through the whole evolution thing. They were Christian. They kept saying, Robin, macroevolution is real and microevolution doesn't exist. But the whole theist shtick is that microevolution is the thing that exists and macroevolution doesn't. And I kept trying to help him to say, I think you mean microevolution. But he was so stubborn. He kept, digging his heels in because he thought it was the macroevolution. Anyway, I just wanted to complain about that. And then like an hour later, he pings me and he's like, oh, I think you're right. I think I mean microevolution. Oh, really?
And the thing about it is though, in evolutionary biology, neither is a thing. Actually, it's just macro evolution is just micro evolution with time. Just but most time, kind of people split it off at speciation, so they'll consider that. But
well, I don't want to interrupt the conversation you and Niv were having. I just wanted to throw that out there. But yeah.
Oh, no.
Thank you for letting everyone.
Anytime.
Mm-hmm.
All right, he's gone. Let's complain about him.
Did we solve all the world's issues here?
Oh yeah, you betcha. Easy.
Sorry, I was away for a while there.
Thanks for warning us.
Yes.
Wait, everyone stop talking about
religion. It's better to find out what the person's drives and motives are and address that instead of having this endless does God exist or doesn't exist back and forth.
I think Travis made an interesting point yesterday, which I had to reflect on, because I'm someone who loves to play in the area of internal critiques. Like, I know my external critiques, and Travis made the point, like, he thinks is usually not the best use of mental stamina and energy. It's more beneficial to do the external critique. And, I think I agree with that, even though I like to play, even if it's just for the sake of camaraderie and building kind of a relationship with someone, especially if it's someone like Brody. I think me and Brody have really hit it off because of this whole, and he'll do an internal critique on me, so on and so forth.
Yeah, like for the sake of what you're talking about, for the sake of maximizing well-being for yourself and those around you, the physical, mental, and social health, I think there's great virtue in, engaging in internal critique in that sense. What I'm saying is that the systems that are grounded in faith fundamentally as the justification given for believing, and then we're inside the internal critique, not addressing the justification, and we're simply like dancing around, in the God conversation, dancing around the multiplicity of interpretations with regards to what Paul wrote. I guess I'm trying to understand the fruit that's trying to be born there. Now, that isn't to say, and I'm just speaking generally about that isn't to say that there can't be fruit born out of these faith-based, internal critique conversations. But I do think a lot of intellectual real estate is invested and sometimes wasted in that space, thinking that something good epistemically is being done. But like ethically, of course, we can do a lot of good by entertaining people's ideas, whether they're grounded in faith or not.
Right. Yep, I agree with that.
Yeah. So what are we on to now? What's up, G?
Well, we were talking earlier about free compatibilism and free will and
God.
moral what you call it moral systems.
Oh yeah.
And then we switched over to talking about people who believe in God.
The usuals.
Yes, very good. Cool. Did anyone attempt to articulate their own moral system, their ethics? Whether they believe it's well grounded or not.
I don't really believe like a complete moral system. I think like there's a biological factor there.
Okay, that's the descriptive side, but I'm asking questions related to the prescriptive side.
That's okay. Based on that description, how we're to act.
Well, Niv, we sorted this out. A week